What's up, guys? It is Modern Craftsman Monday. Should we keep going?
No.
People said that they liked it.
I think they just liked the intro.
With banjo? All right. Anyway, we got Austin Lineberry from New River Builders, New River Building Company on the podcast from Atlanta, Georgia. It's a long one, but we talk about... Tyler gets into something really interesting. And
Tyler calls you out.
He definitely calls me out, and I go into deep thought meditation live on the podcast. But talking about scope versus client and what we're actually choosing our projects for. And then Austin really brings that home with, having some perspective of, them being grateful for what we do.
Honestly, one of my biggest takeaways from this is that the South seems super quaint and super sweet, and I kind of want to move there.
I love the architecture.
Even the town names, man. It's
I
feel like I was in a made-for-TV
no one would
movie.
even know. We would still do the podcast, and people are like, "Wait, are they in Georgia now?"
No, seriously.
They would have no idea.
I feel like it was like a what's that TV channel that they do the made-for-TV movies? I feel like
Lifetime?
Hallmark?
Yeah, I feel like every town name was a town from a Lifetime movie.
Yeah. Like Sugar Bush or something?
Yeah, Sugar Hill or something.
Yeah. Give it a listen, guys.
Thank you.
See ya.
Monday.
Let me
We have
try.
so much to talk about in this podcast between your stuff and Tyler getting another puppy.
The puppy's already gone. I went to the lake.
But seriously, though, you have
The girls are there.
That's awesome.
You have a bunch of dogs?
We got a puppy last year.
Is that any better?
And
Yeah.
yesterday we went and got another one.
What kind of dogs?
So, 2 labs.
Oh, cool.
So,
I'm actually, because my boys are crazy and it's wild over at the house at night, I'm actually over at my parents' place in my mom's office. But we raise bird dogs. So my
nice.
stepdad's big into bird dogs and training them, hunting them. So I'm over here taking care of the dogs while they're gone in Florida. So
Yeah, my mom has a German short hair that they hunt with.
yep, we've got several short hairs. They're awesome dogs.
Yeah, he's crazy.
Yeah, I don't hunt. I played Warzone or whatever yesterday. I got 4 kills for the first time in forever. My son plays it. I was like, you know what? I have no idea. It's one of the video games. I sat down and I was like, yo, give me a try at this. Between getting motion sickness and I got 4 kills and my heart beat up to like 200 beats per minute.
What?
No, I'm just joking. You just get all anxious because someone's cornering you. You're like, ugh.
If you want to know why we ended up with another dog, I took off Wednesday night. We went to the lake until Sunday, and by Friday night I was rested up. So Rachel was asleep, and I'm just in bed on my phone, and then I just texted her pictures of puppies from the same breeder that we got Polly from. And she woke up to that and was like, "Are you serious?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "You sent me more puppy pictures. You really want to get one?" And I was like, "Oh, I forgot that I sent that to you." And then we talked about it shortly and decided to give it a go.
That's cool.
2-dog life, bro.
Yeah, I mean, we've done it before. It was pre-kids. And then when we had kids and had 2 dogs, I was like, I hate my dogs. And then I feel like integrating them after kids has been way easier.
And you're in a bigger home, more land.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. It's a decent span too, because Polly's coming around now, so I feel like it'll be easier at this point.
Nice.
My youngest son must send me photos of puppies 10 times a day.
Why don't you get him a puppy?
For the last 7 months for longer. Now he's legit so a Christmas puppy. He's already he's beyond the summer.
He's into the next year.
Yeah. He's so a Christmas dog? And we're like, we'll see.
Why are you against it?
We're not. I mean, I'm definitely a dog. I love dogs. So that's why Tyler sends me photos and I'm like, stop it.
So is your wife against it?
No, I think it's just we've had dogs and just not having that worry and burden. And then our yard that's why we dug in so deep with Tyler when how he trained Polly, because like we're on the main street, and
you don't want to fence it in.
I don't want Cam, who's all about dogs, to take the dog out for a walk. The dog gets off the leash, hits 27, and then his dream is literally crushed. So it's just having the right things in place. My wife gave me the ultimatum yesterday. She's like, she actually drew up another plan for this house that's kind of like definitely doable, cash, not really big expansion, anything like much, not as lofty as me. She's like, so we're getting off Main Street. That's what I woke up to. And I was like, awesome.
You could just have Austin's parents train you a bird dog.
That's right.
Seriously.
And then, get it shipped up from Georgia. You'll be good to go.
Absolutely.
That's why he's on the podcast, actually.
Wait, what do you mean off Main Street? Changing the front of the house?
No, like move. Like,
oh.
Yeah. Like,
I'm like, how does she position the house?
Yeah, peace. Like, I was like, what's the plan?
So what you're gonna do some alterations and then sell?
Well, that's what we did the first time in the last house, and I wanted to do something where we'd stay here, like something that was fitting. So my thing is like, so we bought the house for like $525, and put 20% down, and then I think we can add 3-car garage with a master above with laundry, and then blow out the back so it has like the hearth room. So it's kind of and then the whole front program stays the way it is, and upstairs would almost stay the way it is except for the master. So we'd still have 4 bedrooms, but it would have like 3.5 baths at that point, and then I'd have a basement underneath the addition. So it kind of clicks all the boxes, which means there's a new house up the street that's a spec. Not saying I'm a spec, but like that's pushing the market at 1.4. I think if I renovate this for, let's say we dump $350 into it, that's low. That's like calling in every favor I have to do my house over. It could comp out at, I think, $1.1 million, which would give us a ton of equity in 3 years in that time frame. This whole thing is like, that window is that we build a custom home that's not huge, like 3,500 square feet, that would stay the right size even if my boys went to college, but they could come home and do that on a lot that I have picked. And I'd have all the equity, meaning I could stay in this house, pull an equity line, buy the lot, still not worry about covering both mortgages, and then get a construction loan, and then make that move and not be upside down after I sold this house. I'd actually be in really good shape with equity on that property, because that land's like $900K. I want to build for $900K, and then I'm at 1.8. That property should comp out at 3. That's kind of my 5-year plan.
Would you have to finish the office?
No. This stays unfinished. It's actually, I'm going to sign the wall, and it's actually more valuable.
Fixer-upper.
Yes, it's like, we got you started.
No, yeah, we left this space so you could personalize it, make it your own.
It's designed to look like a contractor's house.
Yeah, exactly. Never finished. Yeah, so she's kind of fed up with me. So that's so now my thing is that you put $100,000 into it. Don't have the garage, don't have the mudroom, don't have the basement, and it's kind of manipulating rooms that we have upstairs.
This is her idea.
Yeah, and I'm not knocking it. I have to run both of them down. I just don't think you'll gain the opposite side of it, meaning you might pour 50 into it, you might get 100.
Yeah, you're not pulling out enough money to acquire the new piece of land.
You're not solving enough things that people have buyer objections to the house for being on Main Street to pay $1 million and change.
Sure.
We have a 1-acre lot. It's phenomenal. The shop will stay. 3-car garage, all the crap like the golf stuff, the hockey stuff, all that stuff could live in there. It works in my head. It's just now getting it down. So Matt's drawing it right now, both schemes.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Like, the fact that you build custom homes, it's, I feel like that's every custom home builder's, goal is to ultimately build their family a home, not necessarily renovate a home.
I would like my house to reflect what I build.
Right. Which is why I have these sick, twisted ideas of where I live.
Yeah. Right.
It's like,
are you happy? Though?
No. Yeah, of course I'm happy, but and also I'm going to divert to you, but my plan is I want to rip the house down. I have enough equity of where I am that I could rip it down, rebuild something, and end up breaking even on it, which I'm more than fine breaking even on.
Is there any inventory around you to like leave this one for another great family and do that to a house that's not
which
quite
is
as new?
Everyone's recommendation. Yes. Well, no, the inventory is low, and it would actually cost more to acquire a new piece of land and knock it down. Where it's like, I'm like, this is a huge, like, this is where they're Southeast, dribbling into this side of, Dorchester. It's, working its way towards Dorchester. We're on that side. There's a huge development next to us that they're starting to build. It's like, why not just tear this down and build our ultimate city dream home, and we stay here for another 10 years. And when
I don't know, I guess you'd have to consider where you would go in the meantime.
I would figure that out in the budget. The rental, we'd rent somewhere. I don't know.
You'd live at the shop.
You have the garage next door.
I rent that. No heat.
To take the truck out.
I could put heat in there.
So
Austin,
in your area are the land costs going up to where you're building equity on your basis to where you can rip it down? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
I'm in Boston.
Yeah.
So I'm in the city. I'm, just like in the first neighborhood outside of like downtown Boston. So this particular neighborhood over the last 10 years has double, tripled price. Like it's wild. Yeah. And, we bought 5 years ago. We put a couple hundred into the house and renovated the whole thing. I was doing all the work and calling in all my favors.
That's when everyone fell in love with Nick.
It is.
When he was like tool belt on, hanging from the joist.
It's when I was dating everyone.
Snapchatting it.
Now we're married and everyone's sick of me. But it doesn't make sense. Like, no, it doesn't financially make sense to tear this house down and build something new. It's my sick, twisted mind saying, I'd love to stay here because I like the area. It's a cool lot. It's gonna be hard to find something like this in this area. And what if we built something that doesn't exist in the city? Mm-hmm. I could sit here and talk to you for an hour about like what this house looks like and how cool it would be, but this podcast is about you. So do you live in a house that you built?
I currently do not.
What are your thoughts on that?
So it kind of circles back around what you're just talking about. We live in an area north of Atlanta. Atlanta's huge. It's sprawling like crazy. So I grew up in Virginia and moved down here. My wife is a native Georgia girl, and she grew up in a town called Duluth, where we're doing a project in Duluth right now. We built a house there last year, and I could talk about Duluth for a while. It's a really cool place. But she and I, when I moved down here, we got married, and I'll get into my backstory a little bit, but we were very fortunate for her dad to help us build our first house. And so we've actually built three houses since we've been married, over 16 years. And
congrats.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, we're very fortunate to do that. Now, these were smaller homes, right? So early in my career, I worked for a volume builder, production builder. So that guy was super generous, where he would help us buy a lot, give us a good deal on the lot, let us build it at cost. And we were allowed to do that every 2 years as part of our compensation. So the owner actually encouraged that. And he's like, basically, it was twofold. One, he wanted us to see us do well. But two, he also, I think, was smart, where he's like, if you guys will stick around, and help me build this thing, then you get to build your houses, pay down equity, build equity, pay it down, repeat it over and over. Then next thing you know, we've worked for him for 10 years. So it's kind of a win-win. And then we own our house outright.
He didn't want to pay travel, right? He just didn't want to give you the car or something. So you had to walk to work. So it's right in the development.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the worst part was not, he was cool. The other part of that is, neighbors coming knocking on your door. That's the other part of that. So yeah, I lived in a development where I built about 70 houses, and it was cool. I mean, we always did the right thing. I did work for somebody else at the time, but just stood on integrity even back then. And so we rarely had any issues. I mean, you guys like, we talk about people, and y'all talk about it on the podcast, where, people are people. They all have their little things. So, sometimes people would come and invade your privacy, but most people kept their distance and would do it at the right time. But Nick, to circle back around your question, the reason why I do not live in a house that I built right now, we actually looked at doing that. Really, really cool thing that's going on here, where this area is just growing at the same pace, well, maybe outpacing certain parts of Atlanta. So the little town where our office is called Alpharetta, and Alpharetta is where UPS is there, Fiserv, Honda, Clorox has a branch. So this place used to be in the sticks, man. There was cattle fields and farms, and there's still some of that around us, believe it or not, but Alpharetta's just grown like crazy. So the property values have gone up so much that in looking at the dollars and cents, I actually found a house that was designed by an architect that I use. It was built in 2003. It was on 2 acres, and we were looking at moving just in the next county over. And so we ended up just totally facelifting that whole house top to bottom. And it was cheaper in the math than me going out and building a new house. So we got a great location, private road, 10 minutes from our old house, which was closer towards Alpharetta. And then, as a side note, the taxes, like our taxes dropped a lot by going over the county line. Still has great schools and everything. But anyway, that's why we did. I mean, the cost of goods, as you know, is just gone crazy. It's I don't know what trades are doing up there in New England, but down here, even the trades are seeing upticks, and the materials are they just keep climbing. So, but yeah, we're very fortunate to have already been able to build houses, but they've all been relatively smaller in comparison to what we build for our type of clients.
Why is that? Like, why do you think you live in a smaller home that you build than you build?
When I was younger, first building, trying to tackle the world, I would have said I would want to live in a big giant house, right? I think that as I've grown and matured in my career, I've gotten more comfortable in my own skin. So our house is 2,650 square feet. Well, that was the basis, right? The cool thing, the little golden nugget, I always look for hidden nuggets in homes that I buy or build. So the little nugget was half of the upstairs wasn't finished. They literally put a doorway in the hall, an exterior door, and it just goes in the attic. But it was a whole unfinished suite and area over the garage. So I went in and finished that out for my son, an ensuite and a rec room. And then just rehabbed the whole house. So we had instant equity there. That home was owned by a trust. It was in receivership. The lady and man that owned it passed away. Their family took it over and went in receivership. So then again, we were able to negotiate a little bit on that.
What is receivership?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an attorney, but basically it's where.
Neither am I.
My understanding is a trust owned it.
I was gonna make a joke on the safety guy, but I'm not going to. You can have one for $79 a week.
Oh yeah.
Here we go.
Oh geez, John. All right.
I'm sorry.
On track.
Receivership.
Yeah, receivership. Yeah. So it was owned by a trust because the old people died. Family took it, and then they couldn't settle. They had a dispute, couldn't settle it. So it went to receivership so they could settle the estate and sell the house. That's basically, if you're an attorney, then let me know if I'm wrong.
It's funny. We put our stuff in a trust. My wife was like all about, maybe 2 years ago, we did the whole, what was it? Having a will, having everything put into a trust, all that stuff.
A receiver is a person appointed as custodian of a person or entity's properties, finances, general assets, or business operations. Receivers seek to realize and secure assets and manage affairs to pay debts. Pretty easy.
Sort of like an executive.
I just Googled it.
There you go. Now
that's the first time I've ever heard that word.
Yeah,
Tyler, are you on LegalZoom?
I thought that was just like a Georgia term that you made up, to be honest.
To be honest, it sounds like it reminded me of township. Tyler, you talk about town. I've never heard the word township until you.
Township?
Seriously.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Not here.
Not so much. We call it a town.
We have towns and counties, and no one even talks about counties, except for, I think.
Where are you guys again?
I forget. I think it's like northeast.
We talk about counties a lot down here.
Yeah, we don't talk
You
about
heard that southern
literally
drawl.
at all.
Unless you go to jail.
Well, Atlanta, again, you'll hear me say Atlanta's so big because it's mind-blowing. But basically, people do talk in counties first because some cities replicate themselves, the city names. It's really weird. Like you may have a Madison on the north and the south. We know they're both Madison, but you identify it by the county first. It's very strange. So like I always tell people I live north of Milton, but in Cherokee. They're like, oh, yeah, just over the line. Because our city address is actually Canton. But Canton downtown is like city is 35 minutes from my house. I mean, we back up to a cattle farm but Milton, which is north of Alpharetta, is just right around the corner. So, but if I can, let me back up to Alpharetta a minute and circle back to your question. So your scenario with your personal home is sort of what we're observing in Alpharetta, right? So we did this really successful project, 12 on Canton. And we buttoned up things there last year. There's one guy building one more house, but it was 12 boutique custom homes right downtown. Now we thought we were a little crazy because I guess we were, because we were going to be the highest price point that was built on that side of town in Alpharetta to date. It turned out to be very successful. So my first home in there was 1.4 million, 4,000 square feet on about a quarter of an acre.
Your personal home?
No.
Okay. First home you built?
The first home that I built and sold in there was a spec. At that time, we could go down in the Garden District downtown, buy a little rancher for $250, $300, tear it down, build a house. Now people are paying $600. I mean, that's 18 months later. It's insane. I mean, some people, if you go certain pockets, go a couple blocks over, it might be $450, depending on walking distance to downtown. I don't know if that's a big thing there, but like, man, everybody wants to be close to these little epicenters. All these little towns in Georgia are just doing this revitalization, amphitheaters, restaurants, and all the pre-COVID stuff. But that's people want to walk downtown. But
that's interesting. Do you think that's going to shift like long term? Because we talk about COVID's implications of city and how they're getting out of the city, but you just made a great point that a lot of these towns were developing these markets and like a new downtown revitalization. And I
receivership.
I wonder if this is going to. There's so much uncertainty right now, right? Like everyone keeps talking, this isn't going away anytime soon. And, at least here in Boston, there's a lot of people adapting. Restaurants are basically taking over the street and putting outdoor seating and all these things. But, I wonder if that side of, it is going to be impacted.
I think urban design, if it flows right and it's outside. I mean, look at malls. Out here, Nick, like Derby Street, where that's basically a mall, but it's all outdoor walking. I don't think that'll survive a lot longer than your conventional mall. So having like that Norton Commons, where it's like you have that half shell, whatever you want to call it, for music, and everyone can spread out. I feel like that's almost going to become even more worthy. Like even in I'm in Walpole Street, the town next over, they have like restaurants right there. Everyone's outside now. My mom and I were thinking about getting food. We're like, we'll get food and just go across the street. The town put picnic tables in like the square. And it's like, that would never have happened before. And like seeing kids off electronics and like little bike gangs on their mountain bikes, and like they're going with towels to jump a bridge. Like I love the fact that stuff. I don't think so. I think
you don't.
I feel like the electronics are just this, people can live their own identity on those things, where I think some kids will love it.
But like restaurants and things like that.
Yeah, I think it was shifting towards that prior to this. I think local and homegrown and people kind of, like you said, revitalizing their own hometowns. And like I feel like a lot of people, even local to us, started opening up coffee shops or tiny boutique-y whether it's like print shops or whatever. I think it was kind of moving towards that, and I think there's even more reason to head in that direction now, rather than like big corporate restaurants or heading into the city. I think it's going to be definitely keeping things local.
Austin, is that kind of, does that speak true down in
100%. I mean, everything is small business, boutique. Everybody's into the cool factor, right? But I mean, there's some really cool stuff down here. The breweries, the restaurants. Ford Fry has restaurants. These different chefs have restaurants. Shopping, right? So John talked about outdoor malls. So our 12 on Canton project, we actually weren't the leader. The leader of the pack was actually a couple miles away. There's a development called Avalon. It was sort of a brainchild of this developer who developed all across the U.S., but it's an outdoor experience, outdoor shopping, but super high end. But it has like Jenny's ice cream. It's got barbershops. It's got living, right? It's got condos and flats above all the shops with string lights. I mean, it looks like a movie set. And all the shops there are super high end too. And then they have just cool restaurants, and then they have a cool hotel with a ballroom. I mean, that place stays covered up. And I don't know if you saw it, but they did a piece. I can't remember if it was NBC or ABC, but during the middle of COVID, when everybody's freaking out, and they like showed people sitting on the AstroTurf sipping wine, and like, oh, the people down in Georgia, these wealthy people don't have they don't have a care in the world. They're just sipping wine out here. And it was like, man, you're trying to like frame us as looking at I don't know what they're trying to do, but anyway, the point is a lot of people have spent time out there because you can social distance. Some of the stuff had shut down temporarily, but a lot of places have taken a hit. So Avalon is very close to downtown proper Alpharetta, which is remember, it's a little old country town. And I called it revitalized, but really, I mean, the old strip where the old buildings were, there was revitalization, but everywhere around it was this new construction. I mean, the city hall is it's awesome, right? All these little restaurants on this town green. So you can go out and grab some tacos or go to the Indian food place. You go out, you can play soccer, frisbee right on the green, and kids actually go run in the fountains and stuff. So each of the little towns in Georgia, like Swanee, Sugar Hill, all the little towns around, so they're trying to do the same kind of concept. Not on the scale of Avalon, but as downtown Alpharetta is doing. It's very popular.
How come every town near you sounds like it's a cool, neat, interesting town?
Right.
It's like one sounds like a pasta sauce. Swanee. What was the other one that you just said?
Alpharetta.
No, that's the pasta sauce. That's Alfredo. Sugar Hill or something. I feel like
Sugar
every
Hill.
town's like near me. They all sound dirty. Nothing sounds nice.
There are for sure some cool towns around here. Like if you go on the other side of Atlanta, Decatur's a cool town. Like all these little places have just pumped a lot of money and some super smart people. Like even going down in Atlanta, there's the Beltline, right? So people went into fixing up the Beltline and putting these communities around it where people could walk on the Beltline. I don't know, man. There's just so many cool stories of people utilizing old structures and making something new and cool out of it.
Is that new though? Is that like 10 years old, 15 years old, or is that been like that since you've been there?
As far as in general or the Beltline, which one are you speaking about?
Speaking to the revitalization of these areas and like.
Yeah, I'm with you. No, it started. So when Elizabeth and I got married, we've been married 16 years. So we got married pretty young. Her parents lived in Duluth, and there's like a main road. Highway 23 used to go from Atlanta all the way to the North Georgia mountains. I mean, that's a long haul. That might be an hour 45 minutes back in the day. Now there's traffic lights everywhere. But I remember leaving Duluth, we would get on the 4-lane highway, and we would start driving, and it would get dark, and we would drive in the dark for 25 minutes till we hit a Texaco, and we knew we were at the lake. After 5 years, like half of that was full. After 7 years, it was all the way up. And so I would say probably 7 years-ish ago, the trend started to be the amphitheaters, the downtowns, the fountains, the new city halls, new schools. And then like you saw the little breweries popping up and the restaurants, and then just all of a sudden, it just, I don't know, it just started compounding from there. But Avalon actually was conceptualized by a different developer back before the crash. And a little useless trivia, I actually interviewed to be the right-hand man of the VP of the company to do that development. So I had the original conceptuals and everything.
You keep saying Avalon. Is it Avalon Bay?
Not Avalon Bay.
I hope not, because that's not what comes to mind when he's.
Yeah, I know. It's
Avalon up here is trash.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just
Avalon
was.
Bay.
It was like they try to build these little, you use the word epicenter, but they typically don't end up as elaborate or luxury.
It's like a bunch of matchsticks put together.
Yeah.
And then people live in them.
I mean,
And they
I
wrap
worked
it
for
with
them for a
vinyl.
little bit. We didn't do a matchstick. It was a high rise. It was pretty decent. Cabinet sucked, but
Yeah.
Okay, if you went back there now, what would you think?
I'd have a hard time.
Right? I think it's going that way. I mean, Nick, for Boston, look at Yawkey Way next to the Fenway.
Yeah.
Everything used to be inside. Now they shut down Yawkey Way, and it's packed, and they have concerts there. And then, was it over near Malden? They did that over as well, where they have all these little stands where you can eat. Even the Stowe Resort, the ski resort. If you can ever go there, go there. It's like you can go up and do zip lines, but they have this whole, like, I want to say, what do you have in college? You had like the
Did you say Stowe?
Yeah, Stowe.
Vermont.
Right.
Yeah. It's a great, like you go in your hotel.
Yeah,
but
I know what Stowe is. For some reason, I was like, thought that you said ski resort and was like, there's a ski resort near Boston?
No, yeah, Stowe, Vermont. But no, it's, you go outside, but there's this whole kind of area where it's like they have ice cream, they have fire pits, they have grass, they have the rope lights going across, they have like a whiskey testing area. But kids are just booting around, adults just chilling. I do think it's the way to go, and because people work so much, they just want to take some time off and get out of a building. I mean, that's just me talking, but
Yeah, I think it's been a nice change of pace, and I do think it's going to continue to head in that direction, which is good. I think everything, I feel like in the past 5 years, even things have kind of become more boutique, and people are willing to pay for stuff that's made and sourced locally, and handmade has kind of been pushed a little bit more. And I think that this is just kind of amplifying that entire movement. I do hope that it continues, because I think, it's obviously a boost to our local economies, and it's good for our where we all live. But I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think that this is going to go anywhere soon, but I think that this is a nice shift for all of us.
I think that's really what I was getting at with Tyler. I know you weren't there, but in the conversation with Ross last week, we talked about the skilled trades and how we need to do a better job and get more people involved. But I made the reference that it's not that we're not. Like, I think it's really cool to be a carpenter, and we've already expressed that, and people believe that along the lines of handmade and boutique and local and all of this locally sourced. All of this is already has traction, and for our industry specifically, we are bringing in people because it's cool to work with your hands. But the only problem is that we're losing people faster than we're bringing in people. And and that's the reason we have the gap. It's not that people are losing interest, and we're less and less.
I have a hard time with that. The problem is that there's that era or that generation. There's so much work right now that we could keep all of them. There's so much work to be out there that there's an oversaturation of work to go across enough skilled people.
Yeah.
So then you're diluting the skill level of all the people that are doing the work. So regardless if we look at the stats, how many people we lose, I mean, there's just way more work now than there ever was.
Mm-hmm.
10 years ago, 20 years ago for those carpenters that were swinging hammers, or Martinez, or all those guys. There's just so much of it. And the problem is there's no apprenticeship. There's not, like, Nick, you have it, but like that's a lost art. You know, you're the exception. There's not a lot of that to be found. And how many people can you hire to really teach, you know?
Speaking of the older generation, Austin, you talk about a story ripping down the oldest home in Duluth. What's up with that? How'd you get away with that?
Well, it's actually a really cool story. So,
that's what we want to hear.
I established Elizabeth growing up in Duluth, right? So her family's actually been there since the founding of the town. I don't know what.
Did they make the pants and underwear there? Like, is it Duluth Trading?
No, that's in Minnesota, isn't it?
Boo.
The whole time I was thinking, definitely, yeah. Like, I shook my head, yes, thinking, like, had no idea.
It would have been way cooler if it was.
On a side note, I didn't know that you could send links like you just did, and I'm just looking at every restaurant in Avalon right now, and I want Vietnamese food, and
I'm eating sushi. John's favorite.
Sushi here. I want steak. And
isn't that place cool though?
Burgers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hungry. Pizza. Man, this is nice.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Grubhub that.
They'll
drive it over.
That was the first theater that we went to. They had these like oversized leather chairs that recline back, and like, oh dude, it was awesome.
For those who are listening, it's experienceavalon.com.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Super cool place.
That's where That's where all the wealthy people in Georgia drink their wine.
There's a
on the AstroTurf.
COVID. While the rest of the world is suffering.
Yeah, that's basically the way they portray that thing. It's horrible. But back to Duluth. Yes, yeah. Back to Duluth. All right, so yeah, Elizabeth's family's been there for many generations, and owned land there and different pieces of real estate. Her great grandfather is Calvin Parsons. His wife was Kate, and we have a picture of them holding hands walking down in front of that house we're renovating right now, built in 1938. Across the street, well, let me back up. That house is right on the downtown square. You can literally see City Hall and the amphitheater and the big green and the fountain and stuff. So it's just one street off. Straight across the street was at one point Dr. Christian's house. And it was the first church, the first quote unquote hospital, because Dr. Christian lived there, oldest home in Duluth. Her family had let this lady live there for years and years and years. And she did not maintain it the way it should have been. Southern Yellow Pine is an amazing, amazing piece of material, because some of that stuff still, like, you crack it open or cut it and look brand new. Certain parts of the house, other parts of the house, it was pretty rotten and run down. But so her great aunt, who is in her late 80s, ended up with that place. She owned it. We went and walked the house after this lady had passed away, and the house had sat vacant for a little bit. Looked at renovating it. The cost was just going to be so high to lift the house, build a proper foundation, do what we needed to do, that Catherine was like, I just don't want to invest that money into that home.
You know the term I heard the other day was pouring good money after bad money. Like, that's really where it comes up more and more. Once I heard that comment, I was like, oh, that's me doing it again. Like, that's me throwing good money after bad money, where maybe you should stop and just pump the brakes like you did.
Exactly. Well, so what we did, it's part of the historic district, right? So I said, look, here's what I would do. Go down to the city, and they're very involved in the city. Tell your friends, tell the council, whoever wants to come, they can have the house. If y'all want the house, you can have it. We will help you move the house, but we would like it moved within 6 months. And so everybody from the city came down there. They walked through the house, and they're like, yeah, y'all can do whatever you want with it. So what we did is we reclaimed the whole house by hand.
That's awesome.
And all of that lumber, we brokered it through a friend of mine to a designer in Atlanta. And there's a restaurant called Empire State South. Tyler, you can Google that one. It's one of my favorite restaurants, Empire State South. And all of that wood from that house is in that restaurant, on the floors, on the walls, on the bar. And so that's one reason why I love going down there. It's super cool. Now, some of the beams went other places and stuff, but this old man came and got all the sashes from the old glass. The doors went places, the hardwares went places. And we didn't find anything super valuable, but what is super cool, we were taking some of the mantles down, and there were like old tobacco cards and stuff and old newspaper clippings behind the mantle. Cool. And so I still have a Ziploc bag full of kind of trinkets and stuff. But that's the story of the oldest home in Duluth. Now, last year we built her cousins a bungalow across the street. So they also, other cousins, her dad's age, are behind them. The other ones are on the other street. So they're all right downtown, right? But her cousins, our age, Brandon and Mary, we built them a really nice home last year. But where that home was the second oldest home that I'm aware of, which her great-great-grandfather owned, and a tree fell through the middle of it. And so again, it was worthless except for some of the lumber. So we tore it down, built a new home. And then the project we're working on right now is to the left. That's the parents' house that Granddaddy Parsons lived in. And that house hadn't been updated in a long time. Very, very well constructed. But it was time for some new materials. So that's kind of the brief history of her family in Duluth and what's going on there.
Am I right in thinking that the house you're currently renovating is the one that you guys are going to live in? Or no?
So the house we're currently renovating in Duluth is we call them uncle and aunt, but they're really her dad's first cousins. So I know that's confusing.
I'm not totally following the family tree, but that's okay. I think John's writing it down right now.
When we got married, there were so many freaking people in her family. It took
Fair enough.
2 years.
What was it, grandpappy? Is that what you said before? Granddaddy?
Yeah, I like that.
I was like, what? God, I don't use that at all.
No, I'm just Granddaddy. Yeah, but no, her mom has 4 brothers and sisters. There's 5 on her mom's side, 5 on her dad's side. So it's like there's a lot of people.
I got you.
So what's cool about Duluth, let's go back to the revitalization conversation. So we really have our sites, me and one of my partners, we love Duluth. Like it's not the price point of what Alpharetta Milton is, but there's so much potential there. So when Duluth was developed, there's a lot of septic lots around the periphery of the city, right near the epicenter that we just talked about. Well, these homes are starting to get run down, need to be torn down. And so the city is very proactive, and we really like the planner there a lot. He actually grew up with my brother-in-law and my wife, but they've got a great thought process, forward thinking as a city, and really trying to utilize some good tax programs and government money to encourage proper development. Really good building, but they're supplementing it by investing in the infrastructure. They invest in the infrastructure, and then the builders come in, we come in, tear the houses down, and do pocket infill. So that's something we got our sights set on outside of Alpharetta.
Are you doing custom and spec? Is that right?
We are doing mostly all custom right now. We have done spec. And I've looked at some other spec deals lately and really wanted to build in this high-end neighborhood, but man, the money right now, it just is. I could talk another hour about that one specific development. Super cool, but yeah, right now we currently do not have any spec inventory.
I guess the reason I ask is, what I'm hearing and what you're talking about a lot is like these pockets of really cool places, right? Mm-hmm. And you're in tune with that, and not just one county or township or however, town or whatever, but you're all over, and you're looking at how they're all reacting to each other. And Avalon puts together this epicenter that has all of this wonderful use of land. Then the town next door is going to try to mimic that. And I guess the reason I ask about the spec is that being so in tune with it is almost as though you have an advantage, in the sense that you can figure out where the quote unquote spec market could be. And John would probably know better than I, but it's like when you're in tune with that, that's what can make you really successful, is like if you're in there before the storm, right?
Before it gets trendy, you guys can set the bar.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And create those neighborhoods, even aesthetically what they look like.
Well, and frankly, what we did, we took the same quality and heart behind what we do on our multi-million-dollar stuff, and we built a product that was $500,000 right downtown. I mean, that was the budget, right? But we executed well, made sure the architecture was followed, execution of materials, and it shows, right? And so everybody would stop, drive by, take a picture of that house. I mean, so dig into
that because that, John brings it up with Jason, how he can scale, a $6 million bill back to a $600,000 spec.
Uh-huh.
And it's, for me, I haven't done a spec. I've looked at
Nick
development
does not
deals
know how to scale down or scale back. He
yeah,
knows how to scale in one direction.
Like, you're like, yeah, we were able to take what we did in this, $1 million bill or $2 million home and scale it back to 500. I'm sitting here, I'm like, I've tried to do that on, development deals, and it's like I go back and they're like, what do you like? Your number, they don't work, and I'm like, I just don't know how I can put a product out that would be equal to what we're doing on the custom side for spec.
It's not gonna and I've heard you talk about this on the podcast, which is cool. But so I've got some thoughts around this. Remember me saying early in my career I built production houses, right? $250,000. They were, volume houses. Was what they are. What they are. A little bit later in my career, I built some more expensive homes, and then more expensive, and then I jumped all the way to the opposite end of the extreme with the biggest project I've ever done, and that's when I got launched in the high-end market. The point of saying all that is I've seen different price points and have understood how to make adjustments. There's no way we could take the same quality of goods, the cost of goods, the cabinets, the doorknobs, and all that, and translate and just size it down. There's no way. We had to make adjustments in the windows, the shingles. And I know you guys talk a lot about the type of insulation, the way the home's built, what's behind the walls. But at the end of the day, you can't there's no way that we could dial that back on a little bungalow for the same price point. We can, but that 500 might turn into 650. So I think there's two points here. So one is for that little bungalow, we had to do just that. We had to set the budget that was realistic and pick products that were appropriate for that home, but not go so far down it was builder grade. I know that there's been conversation around the word builder grade, right?
It's a trigger word.
Yeah. Low quality.
John's trigger word list is growing every episode.
Yeah. But yeah, let's call them the lowest quality of goods we can purchase.
Entry level. Yeah. Yeah. I guess I thought about this the other day because, we've tried to push our way back into all custom work for 2020, even though that start, I feel like it's been delayed by COVID. But like, we're not using the same framers. We're elevating our sub crews to a different level because the amount of shenanigans and babysitting that's involved with that, let's say, entry level sub that you have to use to hit this different market. I was thinking about this the other day because Nick, we talk about this all the time. Yep. And I get it. Like Nick does very, very high end. And like, talking with Telich and those guys, it's like, he's like, I gave up telling people that I'm like a value. He's just like, I'm the most expensive. It's just how it is. And it's like, it makes my life way easier having this framer on the job. And so I had to do less thinking. They get to understand the drawings. I don't have to then translate it. I mean, that's really what happens when you get a lesser knowledgeable sub. You have to translate the details and make sure that they're all getting hit. And then I thought about the other day, now that we're doing all that and we're switching framers, switching subs, like, can I go back to those other guys? Because I can't bring that high level framer down to that spec. The numbers just don't jive. Mm-mm. And then it's like same with the HVAC. So then it's like, when you get comfortable as a builder, why would you challenge yourself to do that when there's no money at it? It's more aggravation. For what reason? I mean, the only reason I can see in my head is that I'm involved in the deal. You get me? Meaning I get the benefit out of the whole overall scope. But just being a GC in that scenario, building it at a cost, no bueno.
And I think why I've been so attracted to it, and John, you've done a good job at selling it. It's like creating a product that doesn't exist in a neighborhood that you want to improve. Where it's like, I live in a neighborhood, you know, I alluded to it before, it's like prices have doubled, tripled over the last couple of years, and it's a very dense neighborhood, and where people are buying, you know, single or two family homes and ripping them down and putting up these developments, but it's total crap. And I can't speak to every single property going up.
The majority, you're right.
The majority, it's like I'm driving by it, or I'm walking down the street with my kids, and my wife's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Just admiring the bullshit." Yeah. Like the fact that someone is getting away with this just is brutal. And her and I talk, and it's like, I'd love to just build something, make $0 at it, just to prove that you could put something better on the market.
But dude, at the same time, like Elon Musk, I don't know if you heard his podcast where he's like, I wanted to build a house, so I bought a couple lots to build a house. Then he's like, then I thought about my bandwidth. Should I use all my effort to design and build my own home, or should I take people to the moon? So it's like, is that really the best use of Nick Schiffer? And you're like, I'm with you. It's just, where do you find the line where it's like, I can build amazing things for clients, that should I take my bandwidth, or should I just focus on my kids?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably one of those, you know, grass is always greener situations, right? Where it's like, you know, people argue, why I can't believe you work for clients. I can't, you know, I'd rather just build specs and sell it and not deal with the bullshit. Where I've said multiple times, I actually thoroughly enjoy that side of it. I like working with
what you call bullshit is what I love.
Yeah, it's like, I like difficult people. It's like a challenge for me, and it's fun because their level of expectation, I'm like, all right, it's so high. How do we come in higher than that? How do we exceed their unrealistic expectations?
Nick, you're an amazing person for that. I applaud you on that. I mean, that's passion right there, bro. But I mean, I've been super blessed to have great clients. I mean, don't get me wrong, we've had some incredible clients, but there's also been intense time. I mean, people are people, and as you guys know, we're with them for so long. I mean, we're all going to have a crappy day. We're all going to be stressed out. They're going to have life circumstance going on. They pull that life circumstance over to the job site. So it's not that, you know, you don't assume the worst of anybody. It's not that they're bad people or anything, but people are people, and you're in their business all the time, you know?
Right.
But there's been times where I'm like, man, it would be easier, even just with a delay. Like, hey, I'm ready to execute this detail today. I'm ready to do this. It's on schedule. Oh, we got to bump it back. Okay, we're ready to do it now. Oh, we got to bump it back for another reason. So it's that frustration of having a fluid calendar. That's one thing that I bump my head against some, you know. So there's other reasons too, but like, you know, going back to the spec game, we've seen a shift down here in Atlanta because there's still guys like, and digging into the money side of it. I mean, you've got the building and the passion side down, right? I know your motivation behind that, but I've learned a lot in the last 2 years about how money works, what the investors expect, like what kind of returns they want. And I've had many of them turn us down on the bigger stuff because they're just like, we don't want the exposure. Like, we don't want to give you $1.5 million loan on that. We'd rather give you, you know, 3 $500,000 loans. Go find 3 $500,000 spec houses and we'll loan on it. So you can turn it over quicker and close it. So I don't know. There's still, it's really interesting, man. We're seeing a shift here, and I don't know how it is up there, but the market is asking for smaller and nicer. 10 years ago, I told my wife, I'm like, somebody has got to build a small house that's Mac Daddy.
Yeah.
But all the pushback I got was comps. It's not going to comp. And who's going to come up with that much cash for that?
You have to fall into the whole formula that's not written by craftsmen, builders, designers, architects. You fall into this formula that it's written by people that don't respect the craft. But then you have to, it makes zero sense to me.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, I got to do this. It's got to appeal to the masses. No, I want something that appeals to the neighborhood.
Right.
Like that fits with the neighborhood.
And figuring out how to break that.
Yeah. It's honestly, if I won the lottery, I would want to just build my own stuff and just do it. And I think that's what there's probably, that takes you to an artist. There's a lot of artists out there that don't make money until they pass away and their stuff's valued. you might be a spec builder that builds for 4 years, makes zero money, like Sweener said, but you've built a reputation of craftsmanship and details that will have longevity. That house will stand longer. People will stay in it longer. They'll be more comfortable. And that's kind of I don't know. I'm a lot with Sweeney now, is that like, I don't see a lot of revenue from those houses, but I see a lot of kickback from clients walking and going,
this is landed customs because of it. And that's, I think that's like the lottery scenario is interesting because it's almost like that is what has to happen, in the sense that, the conversations I've had in these, development deals that I've talked about is always about, all of that works and you'll make a little money on that, but no, in Austin, you just said it, they don't want the exposure. So it's like, all right, in order for me to break the mold and not have to fit into this criteria, I need someone that is going to invest money based on passion.
You need to accept the risk. Yeah.
Right, and accept the risk. In that, finding money, I shouldn't say it's hard because it's not necessarily hard, but finding money that doesn't have all the strings attached to it, that is high reward, like expected high reward.
But that's really difficult. It just, once someone puts that amount of money in, they want a voice in the game, and then it gets convoluted.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think if you want to get somebody to put money in based on passion, they have to have skin in the game, and it has to be something that they're passionate about. I think it'd be very difficult to find somebody who's just going to throw extra money at you because you are passionate about something.
True, but I mean, look at Patrick Ahern, what he did down in Egdertown, where he ended up doing the design and showing people what it could look like, and then they fall into place, and then seeing what he's doing in Detroit with his son. I mean, it does exist. It's just no one's hearing about it and no one's bragging about it. And I think, Nick, it's very hard to do in our market because there's the bar is so high at entry level, where a lot is like 1.4 million. Like you watch the IGTV or HGTV shows, and it's like 30 grand for the lot. It's like, put that on a card. By the time I'm done, I'll pay how much interest on it? Like it's nothing. Like, let me go do that tomorrow. So, I mean, it's tougher to do here, I think, unless you have a huge nut behind you.
The guys that I would consider colleagues and mentors here that seem to be more successful at it are self-funding.
Yep.
Right. But how did they get there? Because that's a loaded question, because there's obviously some that have family money, some that have inheritances, there's all these avenues, but the most common seems to be that they borrow, and it's hard money, and they borrow until a bank or they get a bank involved, and they borrow and basically chip away at how much they have to borrow until they get to a point where, all right, now I can self-fund. And then they chip away, and then they become more and more profitable. It's like this odd scale that basically like tilts one way, evens out, and then you're starting to tilt the other way and become more profitable. Mm-hmm. And then that's, is that when that passion can come out? Or at that point, do people get so far down it where the profit is rolling in, and then the passion's gone because they've been doing it for so long?
I don't know.
I think it's really tough.
That's a head scratcher.
Well, I think, like, for instance, let's say Wellesley. Let's say one of the houses we did. Like, I would love to build, a 4,000 square foot house, with all the details that I want. But the formula is 5,600 or 6,000 square feet on two floors. Like, it's just if you were to build something, the investors, the realtors, they wouldn't back it, and they wouldn't show it. So it's like, it is very hard to create a formula that would, like Tyler, we said in the beginning, like I'd build a smaller house with way more details. And it just, people won't let us do it in town. Like, you have to. Go ahead.
The thing that kind of blows my mind is, why do you even, how has it gotten there that you need a 5,600 square foot house for, that's middle of the road?
But you don't.
Like, how many people are living there?
No, but you know how, it doesn't even fit in the lot right.
No, I know. And that's what doesn't make sense. Like, why? You don't need that space. It's unused space. It's ill-fitting space. It's space that you're paying for and conditioning that's not necessary. It doesn't fit the lot. Why is that the standard? Just because bigger is better? Because it doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, so I think there could be a lot different motivations. So let's get back to the 12 on Canton project in Alpharetta. Those clients, some of my clients are moving out 12,000 square foot houses into 4,900, and they didn't want 4,900. They would have been fine with 3,400, which was around 34 to 36 ish on the first floor. But the point is, they had to push the square footage because of the valuation, because their investment downtown. So, I mean, I have multiple clients that be like, we don't need a house. We don't need 4,900 square feet. But they can't go in and build 3,400 right there where that pocket is. And I think that's the problem going back to investing in the specs for us. Each of these little communities, the game changes. And if you mess around and wait a year, the game changes again, right? The scenario changes. It could be like cost per square foot is constantly moving, and what the market's demanding and size of home to value. It's, I don't know, it's really interesting. So like we might be looking at, like there's a community kind of across the river that we looked at building in, and exactly what we're talking about right now. I mean, I balked on it. So the problem is for me, I think that if I could guarantee contracts, it would make me feel better, but it's almost a zero-sum game. Because for me, I'm like you guys, I got the passion. I want to build a certain standard of a product. And when I started talking to the agent, I said, look, I want to come in $150,000 higher than everybody else. Can you sell it? It's a multi-million-dollar neighborhood. Can you sell it? Will people do it the other way around? Because most builders around here start at a basis. They let people add on, which is fine. But I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want to say, this is our product. This is our basis, which is $150,000 higher, and show it to them, prove the market. And she said she could, but the problem with it is the exposure for us without the guarantee of contracts to back it up, and that zero-sum game is just, I'm having a hard time. I'm balking on it. And part of that is because there's so many contracts coming in right now and sales leads that
you don't need it.
Why put it out there? Yeah,
you don't need it.
I mean, I want to. I would love to be in that community. I mean, there's athletes that live in there. There's business people. It would be incredible for our company to be on that website.
We talked about this before, Nick. I mean, Austin, you'd have to do a ghostless thing. You'd have to create the vision without having to acquire the land and then have it pre-sold for a range, which is something that no one has to commit to. You can kind of proof your formula without having any commitment, and that's the only thing I think I've been able to see happen, because we've done it. I've been doing it for years. I did it with my past employer. We would build stuff and then it would comp on itself, meaning everything would pre-sell, comp itself, and then be out of the market, and you'd have your own little marketplace. And we're doing it right now. We just sold one of our newest specs that came online. It pre-sold, and it pre-sold for the highest value per lot size in Wellesley. And it's like, all right, that happens. Why? And it's like, well, now we overpaid for the lot. Now I'm the only guy that gets squeezed. The investor doesn't get squeezed. The realtor doesn't get squeezed. I get squeezed for having to make sure that this house fits the brand that we've created,
right,
while fitting into this formula that's not mine.
And I think that's what I'm going back to, is that you squeeze yourself until you get to a point where you don't need them.
Yeah, exactly. But I have to leverage that. That's right. The thing is, you can't keep doing this. Like now we're 2 years in. Now we're not doing it unless we're an equity partner in the deal. And in the beginning, 2 years in, or 1 year in, we got offered that, but it's like, there's too much risk involved for me. Well, it's like, we can't, I gotta make sure I want to hit payroll, health insurance, all these things that happen. So it was like, now we're in the thing where we have 2 or 3 of them coming online where we've helped broker the deal. We do the design, so it's our brand. And now it's like, hey, we'll split it 50-50 at the end. So we won't take any money during the build. Mm-hmm. And this would be like my little side passion project where we get to do that equity. But now it's all spinning. All the people that wanted to do it, I meite with them again. These are guys that I went to college with. They're like, oh, hey, because we said we walked this house last Saturday. And he's like, yeah, so by the way, I love Ivy Custom, and my wife wants to move into this. And I'm like, dude, there goes my like $150K on the side. It's my side piece. Like my stash. That's my stash, and it's gone. And then same thing with another buddy of mine. He's like, I want a $3 million house. What do you have? And I go, I got nothing. I got no inventory at all. And then I found that people have hit me up for lots that are available. I found a lot, hit the owner up that I had known, and it's like the entry level for that house, dude, it's $1.4 million. It's like, so 1.4 for us to nab it would probably be 145. To build that on that property is 1.5. So that actually segues well. Is you said instant equity earlier. Like, I think we proved that for a lot of clients right away. Like, if you look at Ivy sold for $2 million, and then Maurice sold for 2.2, and then Simpson sold for 2.3. So that Ivy client has $300,000 in equity 1.5 years into the game. Like, I love that part of it, where I may not make a lot, but it gets me more work because the craftsmanship, but our clients are just like, dude, beyond the comfort, beyond the cool design, they get to have instant equity of a couple $100,000 that most people have to, renovate a home, have to do some work to. They're just sitting on it. Like, that really speaks volumes too.
We, back at 12 on Canton, just the timing for us, we sat on the lot for so long for the development to mature. So like my buddy Reed and I were the first ones in there to invest in the lots. And looking back, we should have personally invested more in marketing, the architectural renderings, 3D drawings for putting a vision out there. Because we knew that people would have a hard time with it. That was 1.4 million, 4,000 square feet, right? And it was kind of a leader on that side of town. So we should have invested more there, but as soon as the product was done, it was sold. But what's kind of wild is by the time we got to our second spec, we ended up contracting that at 1.65. And there was a house across the street that was a little bit smaller. And that builder he's super chill. He just sat on that house because he thought the market would go up. Well, he ended up getting about $150,000 more for a smaller house. About 9 months after we closed.
You comped it.
And basically that was part of it. Other things comped it. So
that's like the one in Cohasset we have. We had the one in Cohasset. We're renovating the back unit that they built and renovated. And Andrew's awesome. And he's just like, hey, can you hurry up and finish? Because he doesn't want to sell the front one until he comps ours out. He's like, that's going to go for $7 million now. Like, but I guess that's my question is, Nick, you don't do specs, but and even Tyler, are you doing the math like on your ride home that these clients can then value their home more and they actually have equity when you're done with your renovation? Or are you going outside the box where this is a forever home? There's always that discussion in the beginning.
I mean, I don't think a lot about the equity. I think a lot about the forever side of it. And, I had a conversation with a client recently that they brought up the comps and what the other houses would do. It's it's an addition with a partial renovation to the existing house, and he multiple times told me this story about his friend that built this house and just spent an exorbitant amount of money because it didn't matter. They were going to live in it forever. They finished it. He got transferred from his job and had to sell it, and he lost $1 million on the house. And I understand that, and I think that's an extreme example, but the conversation in this project is like a couple $100,000 swing, and I know that's real money. I get that, but they keep going back to the comps, and they're like, we want to make sure we're not overbuilding for the neighborhood. So if we put this much money into it, we'll be comfortable and we'll be able to sell it because based on what other homes are selling for. But I always have the conversation, and I understand that, and let's target that. But I don't want to get all the way down the road and realize that for $100,000 more, you're going to get everything that you want, and maybe now you're showing you're the most expensive house on the street. But what if you don't ever move? Like, what if this is your forever home? Like, you're 5-7 years from now, you're going to think back to the time you renovated and you chose not to spend that extra $100 because you were afraid of selling it and losing money, and this entire time you've been unhappy with that. That's the way I look at it. I'm like, and not that I want to spend the extra $100, but and I think that's why we do this, good, better, best scenario when we're working on pricing and design, is that we want them to understand what is within reach. Let's talk about your goal. If your goal, this job, it's like a $650,000 target. Well, we're going to design and we're going to work towards that $650,000. But if the design starts leading to $675,000, $700,000, we're going to create that, I always say we're going to create a second column, and we're going to continue pricing that job towards that 700 number, and we're going to come back to the table and say, here's what 650 gets. But, for an extra 50,000, we get 80% of the things that you want, versus, having to value engineer all of this. And at least having them having them understand what, getting everything they want is. And most of the time we're finding that they end up saying, you know what, it makes sense. Like, what if we do stay here? We're gonna regret not spending that extra 50,000 for the addition, getting that much closer.
The safety guy. You had a safety guy on site.
Are you talking to me or the guy, someone else?
Just saying. I mean, that's a big difference if there's
but how?
Safety.
So talk about navigating that conversation, though, Nick. Like, it sounds convincing to me, right? But we have clients come to us a lot, and they're like, I don't want to spend over X. Like, that's their battle cry, right?
Sure.
You have great justification in what you're saying. So,
and I don't go.
How do you navigate that?
So let me back up. So you say
bring some NS Builder swag in, and you just like
comb your hair.
Free hats.
Yeah.
No, you have to work for us for a hat. No, all right. So you come and say, hey, we're looking to build a house. Our budget's $1 million, and there's no design. Sure, we can build a house for $1 million, but let's start navigating that design. We do just what I had said about the spreadsheet. It's like, we're gonna put that number at the bottom, $1 million, and let's start backing into that number. Work alongside the architect, start developing that design. We're involved in the pre-construction process. So our pre-construction process is basically construction consulting. So the architect and the designer is working on design, and we're there to help navigate that conversation. I always explain, like, there's three parties. It's the builder, the architect, and designer, and you. And we all want to understand what our targets are, what the target scope is, what the target budget is, what the target schedule is. So we outline those things and we start working towards them. If things start drifting off, like, let's just talk about budget and design. If the design starts becoming more elaborate, we're going to, put our hand up and say, hey, listen, like, we're going down the wrong path here. But if it's something where it's like, you know what, all right, we're probably tracking, it's definitely north of $1 million, but it's not like we're doubling the scope. So we're going to continue to price that and say we're at 1.2. We're going to come down to the end of the line, get that price there. We're going to communicate with the architect at this point and just say, hey, we are tracking a little high, but let's continue with this design and figure out where we're at. Look at that 1.2 option and then figure out what's the spread between $1 million and 1.2. How do we value engineer this back to $1 million? And then have that conversation with the architect again, like, hey, these are the things that we would value engineer, gets us back at $1 million. But in that second column on the spreadsheet, and because that's how we present it in a spreadsheet format, line itemed, here's $1 million. We're going to have that option B, here's, 1.2. And this is getting everything that you've communicated that you wanted. Here's everything you want. It's a $200,000 spread. And if we think it's necessary, or if we think that we can come up with an option C, we will, where it's like, all right, well, we can get 70% of the things that they lost by value engineering it if we spend another 100. So now we have $1 million, a 1.2, and a $1.1 million option. And we sit down and we just walk through it line by line. Just explain, like, hey, scaling everything back, you're at $1 million and we're hitting your target, but you're not hitting your target scope. But for, maybe 1.1, we've gotten almost everything that you want. We're another 10%. But if you really wanted to go for it and spend, or if you really wanted to get everything that you've communicated that you wanted, it is a 20% increase. Mm-hmm. And just being open and being able to kind of navigate, you ask how you navigate that conversation. I don't want to come in and just say, you're 1.2 for the design. Because then it's like, well, I've already told you I wanted to spend $1 million.
Right.
What about the customers? I think that we're speaking to a certain level of customer, but what about the customers who are more dependent upon the appraisal of the renovation in order to get a loan for that?
And I mean, then we're fixed by that. So if it's $1 million, then they understand, like, this is what we have to do for the $1 million. If that's what you can get a loan for, I guess,
because a lot of times when like the people who are either, taking out a line of credit or going to the bank to, basically borrow against what they have, or that their appraisal at the end of the day, by adding so many square feet in a bedroom and a bathroom, their house is going to appraise at X amount, and they can borrow against that. Those people are bound more so by actually the rough of what's going into that job, rather than being able to kind of splurge for finishes, where you get down to, I feel like that's probably the bulk of our country.
Sure.
Not every area is going to be $1 million and up projects, $1 million and up houses. So I think it's a completely different perspective and dynamic that is, I think that conversation is worth having as well.
But I don't think it's really much different. Like, let's, if you're going to buy a car, right? And say you're buying a Hyundai Sonata, an inexpensive car, you're approved for X amount for a car loan. They're going to still come to the table and say, well, here are your options. Do you want to add the wheel and tire package? It's only another $10, $11 a month.
God, I hate buying a fucking car. And that's the example you're going to use. Like, out of all the things, every person's like, dude, they're all scam artists. Why would you want to relate to that?
That's true. I wasn't getting at the scam side of it. I was getting at the sense that there's still options, and you can incrementally increase. But
I also think you got to push back on the
but there's a lot of people who those options aren't even a conversation. It's more so that, like, in order to get this money, they have to hit certain credentials, and there's certain checkpoints that these appraisers want in order to just get even a bare bones project done.
Understood.
Where, like, those options aren't necessarily even a conversation.
Well, I think sometimes people have saved up to be able to work with you, and they do come to you with an honest to God ceiling, where it's like, hey, I got 1.3. So we've done it where, Austin, we've come along and we've done the whole design thing with the client, knew the budget, and we've had to scale the design back. Where, hey, we've scaled this back because you've diluted the whole product scope of budget so much that we pull back where we could with the architect, so there is no compensation to, you're not taking anything away from the design. You still have all the cool features. Here's a couple areas that we had to tweak in order to make this happen. Whether it's fixture count, stuff like that, square footage, however you want to do it. Because if you can shrink square footage or even ceiling heights, that affects your window heights. That affects how much trim goes in the house. They have a lot of compounding things that can affect it. And we've had to really work with clients where we're doing one right now in Weston, where we've been with them for almost a year, and like, we did their design, came back, they're at their absolute limit, and then we had the asbestos thing, and it's like $28,000, and you're like, yo, so now we're forced, like, to come up with, hey, how do we really make sure that we try and target everything correctly going into this, so that way there's no more snags where they're not going to eat up more of the contingency. Like they want to do in Weston, you have to do, if you do irrigation, you have to have a well. Call my guy, it's like $14,000 for a well for irrigation. It's like, all right, 14 plus the 28. You're like, dude, that's not a bad kitchen. Like
42.
For your perimeter cabinets, like that's a good number.
But with a customer like this, is this somebody who's has the money to fund this project, or is this something that they're getting money, they're taking loans out for?
This is their entire savings. We've had that conversation.
So I think it's the same, but it's also different. Like how you have to approach that, because somebody like this, where they're not like, it's not like they have to hit certain milestones to be able to get that money. So
Sure.
With these customers, you can pull stuff out, or you could phase that job where you're like, hey, let's do A, B, and C, and then we're going to do D once you're into the house.
Yeah.
And you have money saved up. But like there are jobs where, or a loan that somebody takes out where it's like you have to do A, B, C, and D in order to appraise out and get the money for that loan. So what do you do in that situation where It's just like,
Like
you don't borrow this much money, or
you can't phase out the basement. Like they want that in their comp. So like you can't
exactly for them to get the money in the first place. And I think that conversation is worth having, because I think that's probably more people than not.
That's how clients talk. Meaning, we've talked before where it's like, oh, I need to get a payment, so my bookkeeper's all over me. That's for me to deflect that to somebody else. I think a lot of clients will deflect it to, hey, what will be the resale value, to see how you're going to answer that and see how does it comp out with the neighborhood. Have you thought about it? And telling somebody point blank that this has to be a forever house if you're going to embark on this kind of renovation or addition or new construction. And I've said it before, it's like, if you were to sell this house, take the equity and go find something else, even though interest rates are super low, A, you won't have your neighborhood. B, you'll have to do this whole rodeo over again. So it's really just knowing what questions are going to come about and knowing what they are. And Nick, I love, the whole, we build a dream and we do all that. I love that too, but I want to be cognizant for those answers, where if someone comes at me and goes, hey, what do you think this will comp out at? And in a lot of our houses, I mean, the really high end ones, they want to be there. They bought a location, they bought a destination, and they want a look. But the other ones, when you're at the lower end or even average, it has to kind of even out. And my goal is that, which I don't want to be celebrating, is that we're efficient enough that they will have equity at the end of the deal. Any renovation that they do, whether it's 6 months or a year from now, they'll be able to pull equity out. Because then it's another thing is that, hey, it'll comp, and then you'll have money for your kids' college, whatever it's going to be.
And rightfully so. If you have somebody who's got that much money into a place and a return on their investment isn't their biggest priority, it's just getting what they want, you're dealing with a certain income bracket. And I think that's not necessarily indicative of what most people are dealing with. It's not right or wrong. I just think that conversation needs to be had differently with that type of person or with that customer, because I mean, I'd love to be in a position where it's like I can put whatever I want in my house because I don't really care what I'm going to get back out of it. But I think for most people, that's a huge concern. Like, and it's that, I mean, that's pretty basic. Don't put more in than you'll get out. Like, think of it even as an investor, like if somebody were going to invest in it, like, if one of your customers was like, somebody's going to fund this project based on the return of this as if it were like a spec remodel, they wouldn't allow you to overinvest for more than it's worth.
Right.
Which, I mean, I would love to be in that position where it's like I can put whatever I want.
I mean, it's a fair point. I think, going back to your question or your statement, it's, if the 650 is a hard number, which for this project, there's conversations that it is, then, if we're going to do everything we can to keep the design within that 650, if it starts checking out where it's getting higher than that, we'll still communicate that just so they have an understanding what X amount cost. And it's not to go in there to upsell them by any means. It's just so that when they do make the decision, they're completely they have a complete understanding of this decision was based on the fact that I understood what it cost to be at that next level, and I chose to make this decision.
I mean, that's certainly it. And this, to hire somebody like you to do work, they're paying for a service, and a lot of that process that there isn't a concrete, I guess, return on, like the experience and the level of execution. Because if you had somebody go in and do a remodel that were the same general scope, from an appraiser's standpoint, it would probably comp out at the same as somebody who didn't execute at your level. So somebody hiring you in the first place is willing to pay a premium to have either a nicer white glove service, a nicer product, a better design. So I think that they're signing up for that in the first place. I think if it came down to it, you'd have to have the conversation where, you may be able to get everything that you want in your scope done for your budget. It just might not be with us.
Right.
And are they willing to let go of whatever reasons they wanted to hire you to still get that project completed and that scope fulfilled, sure, but maybe not at the level that you want to be working?
Mm-hmm.
Austin, how are you approaching your customs? If someone comes to you and asks, say, hey, we want to build, let's just talk about your process right from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, my name's Nick. I want to build a house.
Yeah. So we have to navigate those conversations differently because we also do some renovations as well, right? But you asked me specifically about custom homes. We actually just talked to a lady. It's kind of a different situation, but another builder owned a lot in one of the towns. He kind of sold a turnkey package with a pre-selected plan from one of the national guys that designs. They're actually located in Georgia. So these folks came in and they bought this. They contracted for a set price. Well, the this builder basically got them to take down a CP loan and sold them the lot. And then he realized he couldn't build the house for the budget and then ended up walking on them. So they called us to come in there and see, and we just couldn't do it. So you're talking about, Tyler, you're talking about cap, right? That particular client was in a situation where they had already had some expenses. I feel like they overpaid for the land, and the builder probably made part of his profit on the land. So they were left with a net difference that they couldn't come up with it. That particular client just could not do it. Now, on the flip side, we do have clients that can, right? In our more, like, I guess, our $1 million to $2 million product, we run into that all the time. As you guys know, like, people have their set budgets they want to stick by. And we do something similar like you, Nick, where we price it as options. We talk about their dream, talk about their wish list. We talk about their non-negotiables. And as part of the process, it's either, are you going to track down with the road for us to help establish this, or have you already established your specs and finishes with a designer? All right, it's got to be one or the other. Because a lot of times we'll come in and they've already talked to one or two builders. The builder's given them a price, set an expectation. We're like, okay, that's great. Can we see the specs? We don't have specs. Well, what did they price? What did they price? What is it based off of? What kind of windows? What kind of roof? And they're like, well, we don't know, right? So our process is to start up front, and preferably the people come to us. They might have a piece of land in mind. They don't have an architect. We can recommend an architect that we work with well, that we have a relationship and kind of help guide those conversations on cost. And then we can connect them with a designer that we work with well. Because at some point, somebody's got to have that conversation. And I tell them, a lot of our custom stuff is cost plus. And so we'll say, look, let's talk about our credentials, who we are. Vet us out. Talk to our clients. Make sure that you don't know me from Sam. You don't know my team from Sam. So make sure that we are people of honesty, integrity. The quality is what we say it is. Go walk a home. We'll take you to a home. And so we offer that as part of our process for the really serious people, right? But then we talk and have the conversation around, what value are you getting for the fees that we are charging you? That's really what you should be comparing. A lot of people around here get caught up on the total dollar figure.
Right.
And it's like, what I want you, and I'm encouraging you to get caught up on, is how we compare for the quality, the delivery, the value, who we are, our execution compared to the other person and what they're charging. And then let's establish a relationship, sit down. I will educate you on the products. My team will educate you on the products, different things that we use, our standards that go into your budget to build the home of your dreams. If something's off, let's look at alternates. We have people have barn beams around here too. So it's like, well, you might not be able to afford the solid barn beams, but here's another option. So we've got the price for the barn beams, but we might also have two other options in our hip pocket. So generally, Nick, that's kind of how we go about our process. And it's different, right? because each scenario is different. For years, people would come to us and they'd roll a set of plans out and be like, I want to build this for 1.2. It became a joke. It's like, okay, they want a farmhouse for 1.2 in our area. And it's like, okay, let's start digesting this and talking about this. So with each home being different, we would have to start that analysis over almost, where we couldn't develop a can to just say, okay, we can put in this formulation. I know Johnny's been working on the infamous spreadsheet or whatever, right? So, but I wish that I could come up with something that like a magic formula that would make it easier. But around where we're at, the land is so big, and the site work and everything that goes in outside the house is just as important and is an integral part of the building and the total cost as is the house. And I mean, that point right there is another outlier, another thing that we bump into all the time. I've lost many jobs because I'm a straight shooter, right? You tell me you want to build this on 5 acres, you want a pool, we need fill, we need retaining walls. What kind of hardscape you want? What's your dream? What's your vision? Let's look from a drone level, right? And so they cast this big vision. And so what I started to do is breaking it down. Okay, let's focus on the house. Now let's focus on the landscape and hardscape. What about the site work, extra needs, retaining walls, and then the pool? And then at the very bottom, have an all-in price. And people are like, sometimes it's sticker shock, and it's hard I still don't know exactly how to sell that against other people who might not have that thorough of a conversation up front and just focus on the house without really considering all those things. So I know that was a long-winded response, but it's like there's so many different scenarios that people come to us with, whether they've had an architect or not, a designer or not. So we have to figure out how to navigate that conversation and what lane to get them in to take them down that track.
One thing you said, and it resonates, it's like, when someone calls and immediately says, I want to build a house and I want to spend $250, $300 a square foot. Mm-hmm. It's like,
that's a good question. Hey, how much is it per square foot to build?
Right. And it's like, why, which I understand, like we certainly can use a number in square foot, sense to get some sort of budget put together. But we always, it's always the conversation where it's like, well, how big of a house are you looking to build?
Right.
I want to build a 6,500 square foot house. It's like, well, what if we were to build you a 5,500 square foot house that was better designed and a better use of square footage? Like, are we still talking the same square foot number, or is it really the total cost that we're talking about? And that's usually when the conversation flips. It's like, I don't want to go over $2 million, whatever it is. Like, I really want to, my cap is $2 million, and or whatever the case is, 500,000, whatever. But like then you can start reverse engineering that, where it's like what we should be focused on is how much you're looking to spend, and then understand the scope, and then now we can use that square foot number to understand roughly what that's going to cost. And do we need to dial back square footage or not?
When's the last time that any of you three have sold a job based on just somebody coming to you, pricing something out, and landing the job prior to like taking more of a design build approach?
What do you mean?
Like somebody sent you prints and you were in a bidding pool and you were awarded the job based on your number.
We quit doing that, Tyler. It's just...
Which is, that's what I'm getting at, right?
Yeah.
Like John, Nick, probably the same thing. That just doesn't happen anymore.
I gotta say, I just did it twice. We've joked about this. It's certain architects will price it, but it's still, I didn't send it out to my subs.
Yeah.
So like I still say to people, I'm not gonna bid stuff.
Yeah. So we did one just recently as well, and we got it. But I don't believe
made a mistake. You made a mistake somewhere.
I don't believe it had to do with cost. It had to do with our approach and the interview with the client and explaining our process.
So then, realistically, you didn't sell them on your bid. Mm-mm. So it
right,
true,
yeah,
true.
Which is kind of what I'm getting at, that everyone here is selling these jobs prior to like Austin was just getting into, this is our process, this is how we go about selling a job, and it's just interesting to hear that for me as well, any job that I sell is basically prior to getting pricing. You can give somebody a budget, this and that, but we're getting customers to sign up for jobs pretty much sight unseen because finishes haven't been selected. They haven't seen this job executed before. And that's what you're really selling. It's not the numbers. It's not coming to somebody with a spreadsheet or a square footage price. You have to do your best job to sell somebody on your company, your execution, your timeline, your process, and then you can make the rest of those numbers work.
No, that's totally true. Like the last one we just got, the one I referenced, we weren't on the bid list with the architect. The client had kind of brought us into the loop. We put a ballpark price to it all, and it's funny, we had to conform. I sent my bid in, even though they sent me like a spreadsheet you're supposed to submit all your numbers to so it lines up with everyone else's. I just submitted my proposal written out. And I was like, here you go. And they were like, no, you need to conform to the spreadsheet. So like I put it all in the spreadsheet, sent it off, and then I didn't hear back. I was like, oh, well, that was good. That was cool. And then like a week later, the client came by the job site. It's like, hey, totally going to use you. Like, we're doing this. And I'm like, cool. So it was like funny.
Thanks for filling out the spreadsheet, John.
But it just like the architect, you had to follow their process.
Right.
Yeah. And I get that. Was kind of why I was wanting to do that project, is because I wanted to get into that mix. And I was like, all right, I'll normally I'm like, dude, I sent you everything. If you want to do it, get an intern, fill it out. But it was more of like, hey, I want to get in that wheelhouse. Because, I mean, that's one of the things. You have some amazing architects you work with. Was it Stephen Fuller? Stephen Fuller.
Yeah, Stephen Fuller.
Sorry, Steve.
That little upset.
He's French.
Stefan.
I screw that one up every time. Allison, and then Brandon.
Brandon, yeah.
Like, dude, that's a heavy hitting list. That's like my dream list.
Yeah, Brandon's super talented. He's an awesome guy.
Screw the other two, right?
Stephen Fuller's an awesome guy too. He's been around. He's been well known in Georgia for many years, and truth be known, Brandon actually interned with him when he was really younger and worked for him for several years. But
breaking news.
Brandon also, he obviously stands on his own 2 feet. He's a brilliant man. Very easy to get along with, and also in super high demand. He's known throughout the nation now, and he's got some really cool projects.
No projects en masse. I check with him like every other week.
Yeah.
Yo, what do you got in mass?
Yeah.
He's like, nothing yet.
He responded to a story of mine last week with heart eyes, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that you accidentally hit the hard eyes. But he's like, oh, actually, I meant to hit the thumbs up. And I was pretty sure he was just being nice. Like, he definitely hit something by mistake. But probably tried to fast forward through a story of mine and hit the hard eyes.
Hey, he's watching them.
Right? Well, maybe.
It's all that matters.
It's like, how do I skip this thing?
Yeah. Whoops, I hit hard eyes.
But maybe it's your area, but all those architects are like what I want to build. Style, feel. Like,
it might just be a lot more traditional architecture
I know,
as well.
Yeah. But like the tin roofs, the scale, like some of even the small ones that you've done, I think those are the ones with Allison, that they're like, those are lights out. Yeah. Like I would give up half the stuff I do to just build really clean, well executed design, because I think that's going to last forever. And I struggle with that. Like, that's why everyone hit me up and was like, if you don't take up Patrick Ahern's offer to review your specs. So many people texted me that. I was like, I don't even know how to text that guy. I'm like, yo, hey, here's a spec. I feel like he'd be like, this is trash. Go away.
Yeah, but don't you think, I don't know, I feel like you've learned something, whether it was good or bad. Like, it would be interesting to get his take on it.
I would love it. I just feel like I would be wasting his time.
He offered it.
But I
take him up on it.
It may have been.
Yeah, take him up.
I mean,
I'd send it to Brendan. I mean, Brandon and I have talked quite a bit over the years of creating like this library for almost like that pattern book that we've talked about with, Brett Hull and those guys. Is that it's like having that pattern book that you can draw from, that's just unbelievable details, whether it's a pigeon return, a gable end return, the scale of like the gable windows that you put in. Like, I have one, not even a client, she's actually a client of Patrick Ahern, And she's like, I hate the window you have on Cliff Road. She goes, it should be an elliptical with this detail in it. And I'm like, I know, but I have a budget, so you got a half moon, and it looks dope. I'm like, give me a break. Like, I can't do a $7,000 window. Did she
really say I hate that?
Yeah. And then she texts me and she goes, hey, for the record, that would probably sell if you had the elliptical window in right now. I'm just saying. That's her text to me. And I'm like, love that you have 0 filters.
It's amazing.
So, she's probably right, though.
You gonna rip it out?
Dude, it's not my... I would love to. I would have done a lot of things differently, but I don't... Nick, I would love to see you... I'd love to talk to you after you've done this with not your money, someone else's money, and having to appeal to different masses.
I would agreed. You'd do one. Only for the experience.
You'd hate it. You'd be so frustrated, especially going to your clients that will be like, oh, you know what? What's another $200K? I don't know. Your profit? It is tough, and it's...
It is sometimes funny hearing the conversation. It's like, it's just another like if it's the difference between 600,000 and being happy with your project, why wouldn't you just spend 600,000?
It's like, you know what? Do you want to do it or commit suicide? What are the two? Like, okay, I'll do it.
So Tyler, going back to your question about the price gig, I guess that's a little bit of tension for me, right? And maybe my personality, because I hate bidding off of price, right? The other part of that is, how do I even bottle my value, my team's value, what we bring to the table, and really remember all that stuff and pitch it, right?
Yeah.
The best thing is the product and relationship. So we were up against people all the time that people come to us, well, so-and-so said they could build it for 1.1, y'all are saying 1.2, and trying to step in and educate them. But we're trying to shift as we gain more and more reputation in the market. People know who we are, standing on integrity and honesty and a good quality product, to shift into building relationships with architects and with good real estate agents, with good designers to, have qualified leads come our way and really sell the quality of what we do, not necessarily the price. Like, educate people to get to a price, not have to sell ourselves to try to check the box of the price they've already established, right? We may end up at the same point, but at the end of the day, I don't want to send them to go up against 3 other guys and be like, we're only spending 1.1. He said he could do it for $1 million. But anyway, there's a whole game in our area where people, they'll underbid and they get changed ordered a lot.
So how does it work with architects? Are they offering up 3 builders, or you have a relationship where it's just yours?
Well, and it's on my end too, right? So I bring clients to architects. We may talk to clients about certain architects and let them interview them so the personalities jive as well. But yeah, I mean, I would love to, we do try to get in the good graces with architects, and where there's an appropriate project, be considered for that. But I've never actually been on a quote unquote bidders list from an architect. I haven't had that scenario in many years where architects asking for 3 bids and we're submitting bids. It's more introduction relationship, and they allow us to do the pricing on our own. That's kind of the way it's handled down here. In my experience.
It ends up, that basically none of us want to be bidding jobs because we want to be doing things the way that we do them.
Well, you're just a number at that point.
Yeah, but I mean for whatever, because you could do that job for that price. It just wouldn't be the way that you'd want to do it, right? It wouldn't be to your standards or the way that you operate, or you'd have trouble standing behind that. And I have this voice in my head while we're having this podcast to kind of make sure that we do talk to the other end of the market. And I think that we've all developed and kind of gotten into that market because of what we wanted to do. And we have that luxury of having people who are willing to hire us because they want us, not because of our number. Like, that's the goal. That's the goal for me when I went into the business, is I want people to hire me because they want me to do it. And like, not that I want price to be irrelevant, but I want that to be a secondary factor when choosing us. Like, there's way more important things for me. But I think there's a balance there, right? Like, should we be doing that, or is that selfish of us to be doing things to a certain level that, we just want to be doing them? Where like a customer has a budget and there's certain aspects of our business that they want us to hit or implement, but we're not entertaining that budget because it's just not what we want to do.
We're not in this to do things that we don't want to do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're hiring us because they see a product that we put out, they want that product.
Yeah.
So there has to be some non-negotiables there. But you bring up an interesting point now, because, and I think John, you and I have talked about it, where of course we all go in this and want to create this brand behind who we are and get hired based on people knowing us. But John, you said it, like, there's this whole other market that just isn't ever going to know us before this. They're not on social media. They're not seeing us anywhere else, and it's this market that some of us or a lot of us might strive for. And I'm in a position now where I'm being presented a project and being considered for it, and the client doesn't know us, and they're not gonna have a chance to get to know us until we get to that interview stage. So after preliminary numbers, and you can call it whatever you want, but they're doing a budget check, and
that's driven from an architect.
And that's driven from an architect. And I sat down and I got the call from an architect, well-known architect, or a great architect that I've known for a long time, and they explained the project, and it's kind of one of those projects that you listen to and it's like, I can't believe I'm this is like what I want to do. This is like a dream project. And I still, at the end of that conversation, I said, I just want to be upfront. I don't bid projects. And it's just not how we operate. We're a collaborative builder. We really want to be considered based on our collaboration, our personality, and what we can bring to the table, and in our youth and our agility as a builder. But
agility as a builder, you guys just heard that here.
Which you're
like a cat. You're like a builder cat.
So when you said that, what was the reaction?
She understood. She was
like, architect, right? No client.
I'm not gonna lie, I was just about to hire you. I was thinking, like, screw it, let's just go with
I gotta start recording these phone calls.
We are
hire someone else. She's like, totally understood. I'm like, and I went on. I was like, and I started to allude to our approach with pre-construction, and she stopped me. She said, totally understood. We're not necessarily looking to put together a number and then hire based on that. This is we've spent many months designing this project. We don't have a complete sense of pricing, and we have a list of qualified builders that are that we are interested in understanding how they would approach this project. And when we got the RFP, most of the RFP outlined our approach and how we would approach the project, what our team would look like, how we would staff it, how many weeks we expect construction to take, how would we handle challenging situations, like all of these things really about our approach and who we were as a team. And then it was, here's your that spreadsheet, John. Here's your line item spreadsheet. Fill in, kind of best guess how you see this project unfolding financially, but clearly outlining this isn't something that we want you to spend time pricing with your subs. This is high level how you think this breaks down. And so from there,
there's what, five of you on that list?
There is 5, yeah.
5. So it's like the biggest thing is you don't want to be there's a high guy, which we both know who it is.
Yep.
And then there's a low guy. We don't know who the low guy is yet.
Right.
So you want to be the guy that falls right in the middle, so there's no flags that are hit, because ideally you're on the list because execution is not a question. Right. Ideally it should come down to that meeting.
And that's the tough part. Like you just said, John, it's not a pricing, it's not a competitive bid per se, but that first preliminary round, it's like, okay, he's way off and he's way off. Let's look at these three now.
Yep.
And then it's like, all right, let's interview. Yeah, and then let's interview them and get them to do a personality check with the client. And that's a question we asked. You know, it's like, hey, like, we're going to have an opportunity to introduce ourselves in person, right? Because
not if you're 1 and 5.
Not right.
Not if you're number 1 and number 5. You don't get to the table.
Oh, right. It's, you know, and it's like, you know, and it's just difficult. And to go back to Tyler, your point, it's forever. It's always been, I don't bid. I'm not bidding. You work with me because you want to work with me. And then all of a sudden this project comes along. It's like, this is what I want to do.
Opportunity.
Yeah, and opportunity, and you know, I'm presented with it, and it's like, all right, well, how much time do I really think I'm going to invest in this? And I considered, you know, I'll probably spend 7 full days unpackaging and putting together my best RFP.
But here, so you have that option, and now another option comes across your desk where it's somebody who just wants to hire you for you.
I know,
but it's not the exact scope that you want. I'm at the point where I want to go work for the person who wants us, even if it's not the exact scope that we want or the exact type of project you want, because I'm realizing that my relationship with my customers and how my customers treat me affects my daily life way more than having an opportunity to create certain products that I just want to build for me. Like if I have a client who's unappreciative of what we're doing because we sold ourselves to them, versus somebody who came to us because they know what we do and they trust us and they want our quality, and it may not be exactly what we typically want to be doing, I'm leaning more towards working for that second person.
But how about the fact that Nick, you may not even meet this client after this,
right?
Like at this level of project, he may never have the interaction with them. So all that passion and emotional stuff that's in it that I love, Tyler, there's a point where that's completely stripped away, and it's just agents that you're dealing with, and it's just how you execute. So it's really tough.
But back to your point, Tyler, it's like I do still consider that I still might have that opportunity. So I haven't met with them yet, but I'm there. If all shakes out, I'm gonna have the opportunity to meet them, and then have that personality meeting and find out if we're a good fit for each other, not just me for them. Are we a good fit for each other? And at that point, you know, I hope that we would leave that meeting and I would feel as though that they value what I bring to the table, you know, and I can't, right now, my mindset says I can't discredit them as a potential client because they don't know who we are yet.
But you don't think that you're selling yourself a little bit harder to somebody like that because you want to land that job because it's what you want to be doing? Or considering maybe like this isn't the best fit, but it'd photograph really well and it'd be really good for our portfolio, or it's with the architect that we want to work with.
I don't think right now, no, I don't believe that is the case. I do think that I've been in that situation before. At the level of which I sell, I think I approach everything pretty evenly. As long if I want the project, my level of salesman-ish, whatever, is the same. If I don't want the project, I'm pretty upfront.
But are you wanting that project because of the scope more so than because of the customer?
I haven't met the customer yet, so yes.
It's scope.
It's the product that I'd like to build. When I meet the client, if it's not the right fit, I'm confident right now, and it'd be interesting to have the conversation in a few weeks when we do have, or a few months, or whatever the case is. But I would hope that I would stand by my gut, and if it's not the right, if they're not the right fit for me, I walk away and I ignore the scope.
Do you think there's another value to what Tyler's saying of you standing up now and saying this? I don't have an estimating department. I don't have this. This isn't the right project for me right now.
No, because I don't think those things are necessary. I'm not going to go in and embellish what I have and say that, we have this estimating department and this is how we're going to approach it. I'm going to be honest. And if they feel as though that because he doesn't have an estimator, this project is too big for him.
No, I guess I was saying, like, do you say, hey, I don't estimate products and step away? And then they go, dude, who is this guy? And they dig a little deeper. Like you would with a normal client.
I mean, yeah, there's truth to that, but I'm not pricing it yet. If I was, I just went through that. We talked, I think, offline about another project that I spent, 2 weeks pricing because we were convinced that we were doing the job, and then found out that they were pricing it with another builder.
But dude, you and I looked at these prints. Like, you almost, like, I don't care how accurate my spreadsheet is.
Yeah.
You can't put numbers on this stuff unless you've talked to every person that's involved.
Yeah. You're making
for this project. Yeah.
There's absolutely no way. Like, 7 days is like 7 24-hour shifts to pull that together.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I'm still in the mind right now. I feel as though it would be a great fit for us, that we could execute it, that there's no part of our structure that would not be able to support it, and I want to get to the point where I get to introduce myself to the client.
So what do they say to you if they go, hey, we want to see the last house that you built?
I'll be honest. They
want to say, hey, what's a similar style, similar feel? Send us that client info and can we walk it? Like, how do you approach that if you want to back it up with everything you just said, is saying, hey, we can execute this, we can do this.
Sure.
Like, because we've had clients ask that.
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be pulled together through multiple channels. It's going to be pulling the projects that are going to be in completion in the next few weeks, right? They're going to be smaller renovations, but extremely high level detail, so they get to see the stuff on the micro. I can't back up and say, yeah, we've built this style home or this size home or on this complex of a job site, but based on our individual experience in the company, we all pull from different avenues, and we can, here's our experience outside of NS Builders. I don't know. That part I need to figure out. I don't know how we end up down this.
Neither do I.
This rabbit hole.
I guess I kind of do.
But I don't know. Tyler, I fully appreciate, because that's how I've always operated, and I think what you said gives me a lot to think about. Just in the sense of, am I going after something that I shouldn't be? Which
I think a lot of times I've realized recently that I'm going after jobs because it's more of the scope that I either want the challenge, or I want to showcase our skill set, or it's because I want to be working with a certain person, and then I get done the job, and although my execution is good, I didn't gauge the customer as well as I should have.
Right.
And at the end of the day, realizing that my product is my product, but the daily interactions and the way that somebody treats you oftentimes, for myself personally, can bring a greater happiness if I'm building something that may not showcase my talents and somebody's just super appreciative of it, versus something where I'm pushing my limits and the person shows no gratitude. And I'm leaning more towards finding the customers who want us for us and appreciate what we do, rather than landing jobs for scope.
No, same difference. We've had some projects with designers that we have that relationship with the designer, so we'll jump on that grenade for that project.
Yeah.
Knowing that, hey, we've had one where the client was an absolute nightmare, and we're still doing it, and it comes to the point where you're putting your team at risk. And I've had the conversation with Benny, like, dude, just be the professional person here.
Yeah.
But that it's not for us. It's for that client. That designer at that point, which is tough.
When I didn't share this part of my story, Elizabeth's dad was a builder, and he actually introduced me to the business 15 years ago. So unfortunately, Ted was a water skier professionally, and he had melanoma and passed away a year after we got married. But missed that dude. But he introduced me to the business, and I've never looked back. So, but I remember him telling me, he looked at me, and one of the things that stuck with me, he said, Austin, don't ever build for someone for the money. Like, if you need the money, whatever your motivation is, because he had this, let's just say her name's Sally Moore, but he had this lady named Sally Moore, and he called her Sally Once More. This lady like made his life total hell, dude. So it's like, he just said, dude, focus on like values, principles, what it is that you're passionate about. Don't do it for the money will come, you know? And I've had, so on the flip side, a couple years back, man, I put my heart and soul into this one job. And it's like, it just seems like that we could never hit the benchmark of expectation. And I just finally realized that maybe those clients couldn't be pleased, you know?
Yeah.
With as much as we could do, as many things that we could take out and replace, and like people saying, why, I don't see it. What is it? But out of integrity, you just keep digging and digging. And finally I had to pull the plug. I was like, I can't do anymore. I don't know what else to do. But see, and then on the flip side, you go to a job that might not quite be as profitable, and the people are super grateful and trusting. And it's like, there's so much fulfillment there, right?
I'm in that exact situation now. I'm like coming out of that where there's nothing, like, busted my butt for however many months through COVID, through like people not coming into work, keeping my head above water, like keeping the people in their house, executing 110%, and like no issues, but just never grateful for anything that we do. Like, never once, hey, can we get you something to drink? Like, would bring food home while we're working late and eat in front of us, and like never. And it wasn't until a certain point in the job, I'm like, they've been home throughout all of COVID and never come up and offered me like, hey, do you want a cup of coffee? Like anything. And then I step foot onto my job that I just started now, like first day, the lady's like, we're running to like a place you can pick up food down the street. What do you guys want to eat? Do you want coffee? They have really good coffee. Like, get home last night, get a text message. We know that we signed up with you and expected quality and professionalism, but you like surpassed our expectations today setting up on this job. And I'm like, I'm at day one on this job and already have more, like, I feel like I'm more grateful for being on this job on day one than anything I did over the past 4 months. And I'm like, I sold that job because it was a good scope and it would keep me busy for a while, and it wasn't because of the customer. And I'm like, I can't be making those mistakes anymore, because you're married to that person for so long. And if they don't, you know, I'm not doing things for the reaction. I'm not doing things for somebody to acknowledge what I'm doing, but it's damn nice every once in a while for somebody to be like, hey, thanks for working your butt off here for the past however long. Like, we appreciate it.
Yeah.
I mean, how much of it, Nick, is it the chase?
I don't know. I feel like I'm slipping into deep thought over here.
I'm right with you, because I've done it here and there, and I'm just like I get things on my what people hit the form, and it's like always, hey, we're getting bidders, and I'm like, I'm done. Like, I don't want.
Yeah, and usually it's not. So I had a call with an architect today for a project. This this lady reached out a few months ago about a project in the city, full renovation. She was finishing up a renovation down the Cape. And after that, she was going to do this in Boston. And until today, we've been talking for months about this project. She was getting an architect. Finally, signed an architect. Architect called me today, chatted today, said, "Hey, we're going to get the drawings together. We're going to send it out. We'll get some pricing back from you and the other guys." And I was like, "Whoa!" I was like, "Where is she bidding it?" He's like, "Yeah, I mean, I don't really understand why. Like, I always try. I try to convince her that we should just get it built. But yeah, I think it's the husband. He wants to make sure, like, you know, he's getting the best price. You know, he didn't become wealthy by not negotiating. You know, And I was like, damn, I really thought that was our job. And it's, so you asked the question, is it about the chase? And maybe in a small percentage, yes, but in a large percentage, it's what it is as a product and what I want to be building, architecturally distinct homes, that have, immense amount of detail and difficulty to the execution side of it to really challenge us. And that's what I want to be building.
I feel like you don't consider customer at all after just hearing that.
Right? I'm saying, like, I always get,
I don't even care if there's a person involved. It can be for a robot.
Like what Austin just said about somebody, like a customer trusting you is huge for me right now. Yeah. Because I just went like after 4 months where I still needed to take pictures of holding things up where they should go, like,
right.
Where, I've proven myself at this point. It's like, you got to trust me. And like, you're just making this way more difficult. And like, I have a job coming up that to be completely honest, kind of blew them off. They came to me with a really low budget for a kitchen. It didn't seem like anything that was up our alley. And then he kept kind of coming back. And I was like, you know what? This guy seems really nice. I'm going to help him out. Like, I don't think that I'm a fit for this job, but I'm going to help him find who is. Mm-hmm. And I like led him down that path. And then I kind of created like a relationship with him over all of this COVID thing for the past 3-4 months, to the point where he's now like sending me proposals from contractors that he's looking to get the work. And I look over the proposals and I'm like, yo, you can't hire these people to do this. This guy's charging you too much. This guy's work's not on point for his number. And now I'm going over there looking at the job for him. And I'm like, I'll just do this for you. Like, because the dude's so nice and his wife's so nice and they have a young family. And he's like, to be honest, man, if you could do it for the more expensive guy's number, like, I would love for you to do the job rather than him. And there's profit in there to do that job. It's just that it's not necessarily what I want to be building. But then I'm like, I would be in their house working with them and they treat me well. And like, he's already admitted to, trusting me and being super gracious for me helping him. And I'm like, maybe this job makes me happier than a lot of the crap I've been chasing for the however so long.
I think I just give the benefit of the doubt that the client's going to be that. And if they're not, then, I'm trying, I think it's this, bar graph where it's like, I'm trying to work for clients that, that appreciate what we're doing, but then I'm trying to elevate the scope of work. And then
there's a bit of separation for you too.
Yeah, I think my issue is that like I'm with them every day and they're dealing with me on your level, Nick, but then they're dealing with me with every decision and then actually being on site every day too. So like those bad customers are my entire life for 10, 12 hours a day.
Yeah. Todd, do you ever feel like you don't want to leave that client to like the wolves? Meaning, it may not work, but it's like, who else are going to be stuck with? Yeah. Going to be stuck with all. That's why we started doing design stuff for people, because it was like, hey, we'll create a design that works for the house, and then you can go bid that.
Yeah.
Anything beyond that, like my wife keeps saying, you should just charge for that service. Like, if you're going to review stuff, I'm like, but they don't have the money anyways. Like, I do have, I wish I could unplug that, where I really have empathy for them.
It's true, because I've a lot of times felt so badly for customers and like that I'm not your guy for this. And then throughout this entire process, I've educated them as to everything as to why we're different and everything as to why we're not in their price point. And then never, like, always handed them off to somebody else, where this job, I was basically like, if I were able to hit these numbers, you would rather go with me. And I was never really even an option. I was always just steering them where to go. And they were like, I've told my wife however many times, like, I wish that we could just have him do this job because he's already led us there. And it's the first time where I'm thinking, I would rather work for someone like this, and maybe it's not my exact product. We'll put what we do into it, but we're going to have to tighten up on certain things. and there's certain aspects of it that we don't love, but I think I might just want to get treated better.
Do you think when you say do you think you'll actually tighten up on things, or do you think you'll just end up taking a lesser profit?
I think that I just won't. Like, a lot of times I integrate things in, even like the job I just did with that built-in, like building it in 2 separate pieces and then finishing it on site. I would have got paid the same amount had I just bought cabinets and joined the 2 like center styles together. Like 2 separate cabinets, trimmed them out like a kitchen. Like, that was all my scope was for. But it's like, you know what? I want to make this nice.
Yeah, but do you think that this was that job? Do you think you would scale back in the sense that you'd end up just not finishing it on site? Do you think you could get yourself there?
I would have to, because like the budget's not there for it.
Yeah.
And I'd go in with that mindset. And I'm sure there'd be some things that's in my nature to overbuild things or make things a little bit nicer, but it's way easier to do that for somebody who's appreciative as well. Like, I'll do that all day for somebody who's like grateful for it. But when you're doing it for somebody and then you get done, you're like, man, that turned out really nice. And like, no comment whatsoever.
Right.
It's like, yeah, I probably should have just given you what you deserved.
I got one of those coming up. We did a design for it, and we put it out there, and they're like, we really want you. And I was like, you know what? These guys are awesome. They've waited a year.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? Give me another month or so, because we're trying to, flip off the old stuff, meaning get rid of the old stuff and switch on the new stuff that we have. And I'm like, I just can't concentrate on actually crushing your design. And you really got to crunch the numbers. Like, usually I put softballs and volleyballs towards like certain areas, and then we come in under budget or over some areas. But because I also feel like when guys quote stuff, there's so much fluff on it. Yeah. That I'm like, until it's real, like we're doing the one in Cohasset, we're putting the foundation in. It's like, none of those numbers are real. Like, I got an amazing frame number today that I was like, thought that'd be higher. And I'm like, if I had priced it 3 months ago when it was just fictitious and a piece of paper, that number would have been 20 grand higher. So I feel like it's a little bit more work at the time, but I like the price stuff like when it's becoming real, because people can physically see that in their schedule, and they might, give me a little bit of buffer. So now I'm going to try and attack that one come end of August, September. And we did 2 schemes for them. We did like the dream scheme is what we called it. And we did the other one, which is like has the wraparound farmer's porch. And to see them get excited about that, it was just like, oh man. And then they can't find somebody that they like, that they're comfortable with, that they trust. And I'm like, man, all right, I'll and it's nothing close to what we'd do for the other end, but it's tough. Like, Telich will be like, I want to be the most expensive guy. And I'm like, so do I. I want to be valued for what I do. I do. But then it's like, the other side of me is like, what are they going to get? They're going to get a butchered version of what we came up with.
I think about last year, or not even last year, it was probably 6 to 8 months ago. I think I showed you, John, the Shisugiban, little small, like 12 or 1,500 square foot house. And they wanted to build it for like 600. I think it was 600.
I think I said send it to me.
Maybe.
I don't know why I don't get more referrals from him.
Because it was the same situation. I met them, and I feel like 600 is wrong, so whatever, it doesn't matter. Because I had met them and I liked them so much that I dug into those drawings over and over and over, and I was like, how do we value engineer it? Can I scale back? And Tyler, it's like, it was things like that. It was like, how can I be comfortable with this? Do I look at this in a different light where it's like, all right, this is not supposed to be perfect. Let's do a imperfect job where it's like, it's steel handrail. All right, let's just do raw steel welded, no grinding. Like, it is what it is, like more raw finish. And cabinetry, it's like, all right, can we do, a super inexpensive, utilitarian cabinet, because that's the design. And it was about the fact that they valued who we were and really wanted to work with us, and I equally wanted to work with them. So I keep slipping into deep thought here, where it's like, I think this is a unique situation for us as a company, where we're presented with this opportunity where for maybe one, probably not the first time, but for for this time in a long time in sense, I'm considering the scope before the client. And I don't know if I don't know if it's necessarily right nor wrong, but it is a different approach to what I'm used to.
Yeah, but I'd put way more time into your Dover client than I would that project, hands down.
Yeah, and
like I wouldn't take the 7 days. I wouldn't take the 7 days off.
Yeah. And I want to say what you used to say, and I know Tyler would argue. It's like I feel like I'm putting just as much effort into both of them, but how can you?
Can't be? Yeah, and that's why right. Tyler. It so sinks in so deep.
Like, are you really giving 100%? It's like
it's not even like Tyler's stabbing me with a knife. He's just turning it. It's already been in. Like every time I drive home, like, have I given 110% to these people?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure everyone has that experience, and I guess things change. What you want to be doing changes, and I'm not necessarily reevaluating every job just from a financial standpoint. It's like, did we execute? Did we hit a schedule? Did I do my best job dealing with the customers? What could I do differently? How was my interactions with them? And then, like, what do I want to change moving forward? It's not just it's not just scope, it's customers and everything else. And then, like, you get a really good customer, and it's like when you get a really good customer after somebody who just, like, you didn't love, and it really, that difference between them seems so much greater when, like, polarizing when there's one and then the other. And I'm like, even my customers now, she's like, don't tell anyone this. Hopefully they don't listen, but, like, they may not be staying in that house because of a job relocation. And they could have easily been like, you know what? We might not be here. Let's not do this project. But they're like, we signed up with it for you, whether we're going to be here or not. Like, let's continue to move forward with this, and if we stay here, we get to enjoy it, and if we don't, somebody else does. And, like, I don't know if every customer would do that. And, like, I'm not the type of person, or if somebody came to me and I had a deposit on the job and they're moving, they're like, let's not do it, that I'd be like, I'm doing that job, you signed up for it, you know?
Page 23 of the contract,
like that, you know?
You missed your opportunity to
exactly
to walk.
I'm doing it, and you're going to sell it anyway.
So let's go back to fulfillment in the job and talking about, like, customer experience and our ideal client, right? Don't you think that sometimes, like, we can be our own nemesis? I mean, the reality is we may not be, like, quote unquote friends with all of our clients, right? We may not jive with them and joke and everything. I mean, in a perfect world, maybe we do. But do you guys ever struggle with or think about, like, how did I set this up wrong? Like,
did
I compromise myself in the beginning? Did I don't know. How could I have changed my behavior to, 8 months down the road, I'm frustrated with the situation, but I'm really my own nemesis. I created it, right? Do y'all ever think about that? Like,
I feel like every day,
yeah.
Every job, I feel like every job is like solitaire. I know how to beat it, but I got one card wrong, and then I have to fight it the rest of the way and be like, oh, no, I definitely screwed it up. Like, so it's like trying to find that perfect rhythm where it's just boom, boom, boom. And now you then bring in employees into the mix, and it's like, dude, you even know how to play solitaire? What are you playing? It's like, how do you get it all to work and then still grow? That's why I freak out when, like, Matt's on and Nick's on. They're like, we got to scale. I'm like, yo, maybe it's just finding that right project with the right client, and you actually can size down. Like, maybe that's...
and I feel like I'm going to say this, and it's going to be like I'm just going to say it, but well, no, and I know
drum roll, please.
I have a reaction to it, but I feel like, especially in our industry, it's, oftentimes we're in a situation where we take on work because we need to take on work. And it seems like we take on a job, and it's like we get the job rolling, and it's like it's not the right fit for us, but it works. And then it's like, next thing you know, it's like, there's the job I was waiting for. And that comes down the pipeline. It's like, can you fit it in? And then you try to scale to fit it in, or you can't fit it in, or you try to rush the one that you took that you didn't really want to take. And you're constantly playing this push and pull. And for me, and it's like, in one side, it's like, well, you're scaling, so now you need to feed the machine to bring in this work. But the other side of me is like, for my business, I want to be able to focus on 12 to 24 plus months of planning these projects, so it isn't so such a dire decision where it's like I need to bring in this work because we need work in 6 months or 8 months. It's we're actively looking at projects that are over a year out that give us the time to really dig into these things. And maybe that's totally unrealistic, but the way that I've made changes to the company and the team is in efforts to get to that, to put the systems in place to be really streamlined and divide and conquer, so I can focus on really bringing in the right projects far enough out where we can really filter through all of those minutiae in the beginning to try to catch the red flags.
Yeah, I think two things for me is, one, that I think I'm basically that rat that's in a cage where there's a button that you press and you get shocked, or there's a button that you press and you get the food, and I just keep getting shocked and keep getting shocked, where I'll have customers that I know anything that I do it's not going to turn that corner, where you're just like, you want to prove to them, or you want to make them happy with everything that you do. And it's not even complaints as much as just like, hey, you know what? I'm going to just work this into the budget, or I'm going to add this soft close pocket door when that wasn't in the budget, because they're just going to be thrilled. And then when 2 months, 3 months down the road, when there's a hiccup or schedule's behind, they're not going to throw that into my face because I kept giving and giving. And then I just continue to do that and never get anything in return, where, people, I think, are innately very selfish, and it's just take. And I just keep giving it, thinking that at some point it's going to be reciprocal, and it never is. And I think that kind of segues into, I'm 10 years into business now, and although, my company size, company in air quotes, is the same type of structure, and that's where I want to be, and I'm okay with that. But I've been considering putting more effort into marketing my company, and it's not even necessarily for product or job type, but just really pinpointing my customer and who I want to be working for, and really putting the effort when somebody gets a hold of me to be like, what are you why are you getting a hold of me, and what are you looking for in a contractor? And scope of work obviously plays into that, but I want to stop stressing so much scope, and more so people who just what are you looking for in a contractor? Do you want somebody who's on the job every day, somebody who's responsive, somebody who keeps your house clean, and find a fit that way? And, obviously the scope has to fit to some extent, but stop selfishly saying, I only want to do jobs where I get to showcase my skill set.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing too, your story reminded me, Tyler, of a mistake that I made. I mean, I'm a giver, right? I love giving. And I had a mentor of mine tell me, wait till the end to be charitable. If you want to be charitable, do it after everything is done. Yeah. And I think that we set ourselves up, if we're similar personality types, where we want to give to be generous, but we have an expectation in return. And then that expectation is not met. So we might get a little bitter or angry, or why, man, I threw in a farm sink. Why are they not happy? Right.
Yeah.
And then so a few years ago, it reminded me of this job that I did. And I don't know if y'all remember when lumber just shot up, there's something going on with trade with Canada, and I can't remember the exact scenario, but lumber just went crazy in a short period of time. I remember it was right in the spring. And so on this job that we were on, I said, you know what, man, I feel bad that this happened. So we're not going to charge you any fee on the uptick right now, even though our contractor was wrote that way. And we're not going to charge you on this either, so it helps absorb that extra money. Mm-hmm. From that point on, everything was negotiation. It was undervalued, and so then it became this tension, right? And that was a huge eye-opening experience for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point.
Yeah, I mean, I continue to. Yeah, I created it. So sometimes I feel like we compromise out of good intent, but then I don't know if we regret it, but there's backlash, right? Either
you
in our
expect somebody to at least treat you the same way.
They recognize the situation and then they reciprocate, or at least understand it. I think it's also, there's a thing of oversharing. Like, you're like, oh, you could do this, you could do that. And then it's like Nick, we talked about it with that shower. It's like, yeah, this, we could make this work. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, my expectations are way up here. What my subs will execute is right below that. What the client wants is way below that. So it's like, at some point I need to pump the brakes and be like, you know what, this project, this budget, this is perfect for this. I don't need to freak out. And then Tyler's on my right shoulder and he's just like, dude, get it right. What are you doing?
I love what Austin just said about if you want to be charitable at the end, because I feel like oftentimes you're doing that up front because you either had somebody sign up and maybe you were more expensive and you're trying to like prove to them, hey, we added in for this already and we're going to do this and we ran into this, but we're going to absorb that cost. And then you get to the end of the job where, like John says, you're cutting into your profit at that point and you need to get out of there and it doesn't come back around. And then you can leave that job on a sour note where maybe you just wait till the end and then you charge or you don't charge, and then you can leave that job on the right foot and not set the tone. I mean, like, specifically, two things that come to mind. My customer on my last job complained that they didn't like their pocket door downstairs. It made a lot of noise and it was like loose on the track and everything else. So I just upgraded their pocket door kit, didn't say a word, and just put it in and was like, hey, I upgraded it to like a soft close, nicer hardware system, not charging you anything for it. And I like upgraded your hardware too. I really wanted to put it in and it's way nicer. And I know you didn't like your one downstairs. And she comes in front of the door and like pushes it open. The soft close, like when it closes, it's a little bit harder to open up. Like 6 times in front of me, opens and closes the door. And every time she opens and closes, it says, is it always going to be that hard to open? And I'm like, dude, I just gave you $800 worth of stuff for free because you said you didn't. And you're like, and I was like, what do you mean? Is it going to be that hard to open? You just opened and closed it like 6 times. She's like, well, I'm just imagining getting up in the middle of the night and having to use the bathroom. And it's going to be really hard to open. And I'm just like, I just turned and walked away because I want to be like, you are so ungrateful right now. Like I could have given you my contract. I could have gone to Home Depot and gotten like Johnson pocket door hardware and put it in. Or even in the design stage, she didn't want to splurge to color match the cabinets to like the vanity to all the trim and the wall color in the room. So I was like, whatever, I'll pay for the upgrade to get it color matched to the Benjamin Moore color. And then we get the vanity in and she's sending me pictures at 11:30 on a Friday night that there's no way that the cabinet's the same color as the wall. So I just ignore it and I get in on Monday and just take the door off and put it on the same wall and take a picture and send it to her. And it's the exact same color. And it's just like no response at that point. And I'm like, I paid for the cabinet to be color matched. So even if it wasn't color matched, you really have no leg to stand on because all you paid for was like the standard white and stuff like that, where I'm like, it frustrates the heck out of me.
But you also got to think about too, with the pocket door example, I mean, your knowledge basis in that is way up here compared to where she's at, right? So her expectation is, I'm not happy with the way this door open is. You're thinking, I'm going to give you the Lamborghini and I'm going to blow your socks off. Where she might just be thinking, well, I just want my pocket door to work. You didn't have to spend $600 extra over $200 or whatever it is, So, I mean, that is a good example that I've fallen into. I mean, before is just giving and giving, but I've overgiven over people's expectation.
Yeah.
It's like, they didn't want the roll sink. They were okay with an uptick, or they were just complaining about the shade of white. I didn't have to go to such a different extreme. But man, it's always you learn stuff every job that I do, every house that I build. Like I learn, right? And even in the sales process, like I tell people sometimes, I'm like, I wish I sold vacuums someday, because if I bomb one day or don't want to do something right, then I can just do it different the next day. But like with our sales processes kind of being staggered so much, you have to wait to execute. And when you get a personality type like that, that may be 6 months down the road before you can handle that situation differently.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. Look, I think that we're all very passionate about what we do, and maybe it's that sometimes I feel like my passion, my trustworthiness, what I'm trying to give is being not appreciated. I don't want to say attacked, but like in certain situations, it might not be appreciated or what my expectation is, and then I'm let down.
Hey,
it's true.
Without the bad ones, I don't think you value the good ones as much.
Amen. That's a very, very good point. And I mean, is it realistic to think that we're going to have all good clients? I mean, is that reality? I think that for us, what we have to do is stand on our foundation, our values of our company, what we truly believe in, what we stand for, and be more black and white with people, right? And I'm preaching to the choir. This is the hardest thing for me to do, because I told you guys I'm a giver, right?
Same.
I just compromise myself, and then I'm the one that ends up angry and bitter, and they're happy, right? It's like it's this false expectations. But I think that, for me, it's just come with maturity, with growing, with each year that I build and grow in my career. I mean, I'm 15 years in, so
It's
I'm
just
sure you guys would say the same thing.
In my head, I'm like, when do I stop chalking this up to experience?
Never.
Like, there's got to be a line somewhere where I'm like, you know what, dude,
hey,
get this right.
Dude, I heard this quote this weekend or last week I was at a leadership conference, and they said, you're either learning and growing or dying. It's like, there's a lot of truth to that.
Sometimes dying sounds good, though.
Some days, man.
Well, I think that, I mean, if we want to use analogies and metaphors and stuff, like there are a lot of things that we need to die to in order to grow. I mean, I've got so many bad habits that I've had to grow through with the best of intentions,
I think sometimes it does become easier. To Nick's point, is when you have employees. I was just having this conversation with Benny the other day. It's like some of the stuff that you hate, it's like when your kid falls off a bike and they look right up at you, and if you have this face of like shock, then they start crying. But if you're just like giggling and laughing, then they're like, oh yeah, this is cool. It's almost the same thing. How I was raised was differently, like through this industry, not as a person. And it's like I was always brought up to take on X amount of projects. And that's what I end up doing. I fall into that. So like having Tyler on the podcast and being able to talk every week, I'm like, dude, throttle down. Take it to third gear. Like, bro, this is all right. And it's just like, if I want to do that, then I need to market myself and target these products that are going to basically take 12 months to 24 months to complete. That's what we have to be doing. If that's what I want. If I want to be doing 2 to 4 products, I have a sheet in the other room. It's a, 11 by 17 sheet of the entire restructure of the company and what it would take to have the structure, and then what it would take for the ideal workload of projects to cover that, what the numbers would have to be, management, overhead and profit to cover all the expenses. And then I did it like 6 different ways, and then I handed it to my wife, and I was like, what do you think? And then then the same thing happened on Saturday. I'm talking to some kid online, and he's just like, I'll get the first job, big one, custom, blah blah. I'm like, sweet, man. He's asking me some questions. I'm laying it down for him, and he's just like, I go, so where you at? And he's like, yeah, I'm like $365 a square foot. And I'm like, dude, this is your first house and you're at $365? Yeah. Like, I immediately walked away. I didn't get upset with him on the phone. I walked away and I'm like, I should be charging $700 a square foot.
Right.
If this dude's getting $345. And it was the same day I talked to Telich as well, and I was just like, it was like a double punch. I think my nose was bleeding after that. It was just like, dude, pull it together. Like, you're undervaluing yourself, and I've been doing that my entire career.
I had a situation though where we tried to go up basically 5 points, and the market wouldn't absorb it. People, I guess, they didn't value the delivery as much as fixating on the final price, I guess. We just couldn't do it. And you go one town over, and they're getting those margins in that town over. And then you go down in the city and they're getting even more down there. So I think part of that's proximity too.
Yeah.
But
I mean, we bumped it up on a few of them, 2-3 points, and we've gotten it every time. I think we told ourselves, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to bump it up in case they want to negotiate it down, and they just never did. And we were like, all right, that's where it is now.
New standard.
Yeah, but it was just
bump
like
it up more now that you get that negotiation in.
But you know what's funny?
Make them feel like they're saving money.
But the crazy thing is that that's what I needed to tell myself at the moment to bump the number up.
Yeah.
That's the crazy kind of tale I had to say is like, you know what? In case you want to negotiate it. It was never the intent. The intent was that, hey, this is what we're valued at. But my other point with Benny was just like, the things that you hate, like not giving in and reading the scope and that stuff, it's like you can correct that with one of your guys. Like, you know what? Do that change order right away. Like all the stuff that that you struggle at is like you play it off like, no, this is how you roll with it. This is how you do it. And you can correct that. You can correct your flaws with the people below you that are working their way up. And it's like, that is a blessing. When it's like, oh yeah, the daily logs, dude. Yeah. You gotta love those. The clients love them. I love them. Everyone loves them. I feel like Trump. It's like, but when I'm doing them, you know what? Peace. That can wait.
There's a lot to this one.
I didn't even get into like what your team's like. Is it just you building all this cool stuff?
no, so no, it's not. I've had tension because I've wanted to scale up and grow. And I remember it was 2 years ago, we had a great sales funnel. I thought that we potentially could close $8 million our second year. And for one reason or another, things just started falling off. And we still had a good year. So basically, I started my company in 2008, and I had a brief hiatus working for another general contractor during the downturn, and then came back to New River in 2016. So, we're 3.5 in now and have had really 3.5 great years. But there's always been that tension of we just need to close a little bit more. But I'm maxed out, right? I'm like, I cannot do anymore for what I want to deliver and how I want to focus on the clients that I have. So there's always been that tension there. And I just recently have one of my best friends for a long time. We actually are going to partner together and tag team and try to grow a little bit more. I've got another project manager that wants to come and work for us, and we already got 2 in place. So I've had myself, project manager. He has him, a project manager. We got a third one coming on. And then I've got 2 ladies that are in our office that do operations. My mother-in-law helps with some accounting. Then we used an outsourced accounting firm as well as part of our quote-unquote team. And then my wife is a brilliant designer and an artist, and her family is a line of artists, professional artists.
Joe, you're not at your house. You don't have to say that. She won't hear you.
No,
or your parents.
She won't hear me. Nobody's here except the dogs, the bird dogs.
So how do you really feel about her? She won't listen.
But the point of this is she worked with us in the beginning, and she did a great job, but her passion is nursing. So we had some jobs that other designers were brought in by clients, different reasons. We worked with Ashley Gilbreth on a job. So it was a natural transition for her to go back into nursing, and that's where her passion is. So she was dang good at design. We enjoyed working together. Talking about expectations, see, her expectation is we'd ride around in the truck and go to lunch and it'd all be fun. We'd be together all the time. And that wasn't reality, right? So it's like, maybe not. But so she still does kind of one-off things on consulting for design, but she's a full-time RN and mama to our children. So yeah, we have a nice little team here, and trying to get things set up and really, the church that we go to, they have an organization bubble chart. When they first started, they had like 100 some bubbles, right? And there was only 6 of them. They had all their names in the bubbles, all the way down the org chart. And then as they were hiring, they started filling names in the bubbles. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get the right people in the right spots and really build an organization where we can duplicate our efforts and grow. Because I can't be successful in the life that I want to have with the time that I have. It goes back to the whole work-life balance and what's going on in our lives and other things that we have going on with sports and kids and organizations we're involved with. So So yeah, my buddy Chad's coming on board, and we've already started tag teaming some jobs together. And yeah, I don't know a lot of your backstory with Benny, Johnny. I'd be curious to know a little bit more about that, how you guys are successful and have that set up. But he's been building as long as I have. We actually met, even though we went to the same church years ago, we met at a codes class. We sat in the same codes class, and that's how we got started. But anyway, we have a great team. And then there's a lady who used to work for a great company here called Hedgewood Homes. They do some really cool stuff with this architect, Lou Oliver, they're worth looking up for sure. Do a niche product here in Georgia, but she had a career with them, and she's a licensed builder. And so we do some projects together when she has a lead, but she just adopted a little baby and is really focused on being a mama too right now.
So you got to do.
That's our team. I mean, we're a small team, and for a while it was just me, and then Heather's been with me for a while. She's like my right hand, because Elizabeth, my wife, she was doing the design thing, but Heather is the organization arm of what was the trio in the beginning. And Heather still works for us in operations, but she and her husband have been some of our best friends for years, and they wanted to do a kitchen renovation / garage addition. And she was a producer for big events and at our church too, larger church. And so I went over there, and she had a notebook like all organized, laid out, color coded, all that stuff. And I'm like, do you want a job? Because I need help right now.
You sound like Nick.
She's like, okay, yeah. I mean, I already knew their integrity. So I hired her, and she started working for me part-time back in 2016. So yeah, that's us. That's our team.
Sweet.
I just looked up Hedgewood. They build some cool stuff.
They build really cool stuff. Their stuff is really driven by Lou Oliver. You need to look him up. He's a brilliant man. Has just found this niche product, and talking about new urbanization, his whole philosophy is about intentional design, the way the neighborhoods are laid out, building smaller but nicer.
Yeah.
Really thinking about cohesion across the whole project. But he's been known for a lot of neighborhoods, but one of the most noteworthy is Pinewood Studios in South Georgia, where the movie studios are. There's a cool community down there. But for years, his kind of mantra has been one of them, proving that a good quality neighborhood with intentional design, smaller footprint, nicer finishes will yield higher square footage costs, right? Like price per square foot. And they've proven it. I mean, they've certainly proven it with their neighborhoods.
That's what we got to do. Less is more.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's becoming here. It's funny because early on we were talking about specs and different houses in Atlanta, and it's so wild to think people years ago just wanted giant houses here, and you could get away with building them. I mean, you could build an 8,000 square foot house in the hundreds of dollars per square foot. I mean, now they were building them like production quality, entry level quality windows and cabinets and stuff, but those days are long gone. You just can't do that anymore.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think as a society here, people, there's still nice sized homes out there. Don't get me wrong. And there's a place for them and for the right client. But overall, generally the trend is going smaller but nicer. And I think people just are kind of tired of maintaining the larger homes and, wanting more efficient space and put their money in the finishes.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah.
Austin, appreciate you coming on, man.
You ready to wrap? It's 9:30. 9:20.
I'm going to hockey.
9:17. Are
you
you
going hockey?
Skating tonight.
My wife went to the lake with the girls, so I'm like bachelor.
Dang.
Go to bed early.
Might sleep on the couch.
Yeah, right. That's what I end up doing. I end up falling asleep on the couch and just not getting up. And
yeah, dude, that's what I do whenever she's gone. I'll be like, oh, hold on, I slept in my room last night. She's like, you slept on the couch again, because we might have a TV in our room.
She's like, what'd you do last night? I'm like,
whatever.
Went to bed at 9:30.
Yeah.
Yep.
You keep talking about the lake. Are y'all big lake people?
So my in-laws have a lake house, probably 3.5 hours from us, up in New York. So my daughters, with all that's going on with like COVID and school canceling, they've been up there a lot more than we normally are. And my wife's not working in the office, so she's been going up and spending like half weeks up there while I've been staying home working. So
yeah,
the beach is a lot closer to us, but her parents have the lake house, so
that's cool. We're big water sports people.
Yeah, we my daughters are not that athletic, so.
I mean, you're throwing her off a dock like 10
I mean,
feet in the air.
they keep their heads above water. They're not drowning, but other than that, we're not really much of. My kids aren't sports. Yeah. They're young too.
My kids aren't sports.
No, they're not. Tilly might be. My oldest daughter. Oldest daughter's definitely like theater, art, not sports. She'd trip over herself.
All right, Austin. Well,
thanks, guys.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on and chatting. And there's a lot of context to this one.
Yeah.
I'm still jealous of you.
It's all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep sending me the videos, please.
I will. Absolutely.
Yeah, John was sending them to us too.
Group chat?
I sent them because these guys, who's on tonight? I was like, oh, he builds this stuff. And they're like, what? And I was like, boom, I sent one of the videos. Tyler was like, can I see the front elevation of that one?
So I sent another video.
View. It's a treat when you send them off to me. I'm like, oh, I stop everything I'm doing. My wife's like, what's the matter? I'm like, we got to watch this video. Like, just stop everything. I'll be walking with her and be like, stop, we got to look at this.
Yeah, it looks good, man. Send some interiors.
I got that. I'll forward it to you, boys. He sends them all.
It's a beautiful place, man. We get to do some really cool stuff. I'm super grateful and super blessed to be able to do it. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
We'll be in touch, man. Oh, wait. Your shout out.
Yeah. So our website is www.newriver.build. You can find us on Instagram at New River Building Co. and on Facebook, New River Building Co. And house.
Random question.
Uh-huh.
How many people mess up the newriver.build.com?
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot. Well, I say that. I mean, it happens occasionally. I know exactly what it is. And sometimes I just preface it saying, it's no.com, just .build.
Yeah. I like it. It's clean.
All right, man. We'll send you a Phillies hat. Thanks for coming on.
Awesome.
Take care, man.
See you, dude.
Bye.
True. Let's see what we got for reviews here.
I was doing
just
we
one?
give a 1 week giveaway to being on the group text.
Because we're out of hats. Because I mailed out all the hats this week.
Did you? All right, let's order some more. We got one from Matt Wagon. Just getting into the podcast, I especially enjoyed Ben Uyeda and Steve Basic's episodes. I'm an architect, business owner, and a wannabe craftsman, and have really enjoyed the discussions. Matt, appreciate you writing us a review. When we get hats, you can shoot us an email. But dude, we need some more reviews.
And we're getting some feedback on.
Oh yeah, what about Survey Monkey?
So I'm on it right now. So
all right, so Survey Monkey, real quick before John reads them, on our Instagram, link in bio. If you want to give us some real feedback, honest, good, bad, whatever, that's the place to do it. iTunes is where you come to praise us.
Yes.
And keep us as the leading industry podcast.
I like that. Yeah, so I mean, basically people have answered some of the questions, 5 people.
Cool.
Overall, rate the podcast. Excellent. No surprise there. Preferred duration. We have 1 vote for 3 hours, plus 3 votes for 2 hours, 1 vote for 1 hour. So
we're in there. We're 2 to 3 hours. That seems to be the most common.
Yeah, no real tweaks. We've given people the opportunity to tweak the intro.
Cool. So they like you guys singing.
Podcast format. We asked if they want to change it, meaning keep it original. Do more interviews with guests. More topic-based Q&A, live podcast, a webinar, and out of all 5 voted for keep it organic.
Sweet.
Do a mini series. People do want to see that. They'd like us to add a little mini series where it's
like additional episodes.
No, maybe
like
same
we
guest.
About audio.
Yeah, or like topics, and we have multiple guests, or we have one guest that we kind of keep digging with.
Okay.
And then
I said audio. I meant to say auto.
Oh yeah, we are going to do that. Mm-hmm. It's I'm actually going to try and get the guy on for that pickup truck, Nick, that I sent you, the electric one.
Yeah. Oh, Rivian.
Yeah, Rivian.
How many did you order?
2. Nice. Suggested guest was Todd Benson.
Someone
yes.
wants.
I have chatted with him. He's down.
Ben H. Part 2. Jeremy Martin of Ration.
Ben H. Did you say?
Ben Horning.
Yeah, Ben H.
Horning?
Yeah. Again,
we can have him on now that he shaved his mustache off.
So people could put guests there. And then the last one was Good or Bad, which is a great one. I left it as you could leave a comment, and we got a bunch of feedback there. Stop interrupting each guest. You'll have time to talk. My suggestion, clean up the language. Episode 99 with Breck. I was surprised to hear the F-bombs. You shouldn't have been. Honest criticism. Great job. A project manager. Yeah, so it's all great feedback, but you guys, this is a spot where you guys can get raw with us.
I mean, with respect to that, I think, we were edited for a long time, and we chose not to be, just for time of editing and everything, but also with the fact that we all understand that we're unedited and we're going to speak professionally, but there's times where the conversation leads us to swearing, and it kind of is what it is on that.
I don't know if I've cursed on the podcast. I don't think that I have, but I curse in real life so much. I just want everyone to know that I have a terrible mouth in real life, and on the podcast, I curse way more in front of my kids than I do on the podcast. It's bad. So
now we know where we stand.
Just life's about perspective. So
yeah. Well, guys, you know where to find us. We will see you next week. Appreciate it.